hopefully this is all working. It's fine. It's all fine. Everything's fine. Okay. Alright. Just bear with me a second, friends. Hey, Chorus, Watto and welcome. Forgive me while I'm getting set up. While this may look like an exceptional professional... setup, currently everything holding the stream together is duct tape and glue. And those like kid scissors that they get in like kindergarten and stuff for doing arts and crafts. That's how this is all being held together. So I have to tell people that the stream is happening, but I can't do it using the PC. I have to use it via my feckin' phone. Sort of. Because I can't use Discord on the rig right now. Because Discord is the metaphorical, like... Discord is the metaphorical mess right now, holding it all together. Yeah, really, it's a fucking... It's a hope and a prayer right now. But... Watto and welcome, friends! So forgive me if I look a little bit crazy-eyed. The dogs have been especially... challenging this morning, but in about half an hour I have industry legends and wise artisans of their craft. Hang on, let's move this one around. You all got to stare at my half-finished Gundam projects. You can at least stare at the interesting part. Oh, really? I'll tell you some stories in a second. But yeah, so I have Mike, Nathan, and Gavin joining me basically in a big old Discord bundle in about half an hour. I want to unpack Summer Games Fest because I think we can all agree it was a mess. Not necessarily bad, but just the incoherent fire hose of like announcements. Chorus first. Right, the incoherent stream of like announcements, the wild variety in terms of like quality and care put into all of the different press conferences and stuff like that. And like Gavin, who's going to be joining us as part of the trio, was actually at the physical event for Summer Games Fest. So Gavin's going to be able to provide us with a whole bunch of insight. The other wonderful gentleman that we have, who I've not met, so I'm sure they are going to be fine, but a Mike Williams, who is also a journo, and has been is a staff writer at Fanbyte, has been at places like US Gamer, GI.biz, or GamesIndustry.biz and stuff like that, so they know their stuff. And Nathan Grayson, who you've all met a couple of times now, formerly of Kotaku and Washington Post. Nathan has a special insight. It's not just a journo, but also someone who covers Twitch and YouTube and stuff like that. So, especially considering the OTK announcement, I thought they'd be a valuable person to bring together. So yeah, I'm gonna be a bit of a mess, right, for the next, 5 or 10 minutes. So if you want to get yourself a cup of tea or a coffee, now is the time. But yeah, I'm bringing together people who really know their shit to break this down, because I have a lot of thoughts and feels, but I mean, I'm in a weird point of the industry, right? Like, I'm predominantly indie in my operations, but also, I make my living because you guys keep me alive, right? I'm not as reliant on the industry and the market. I'm almost moving into like a commentator when it comes to... Well, I'm definitely a commentator when it comes to faux E3. So, So Mega Boss, Asari, Watto, and welcome. Hello, hello. Sorry. So yeah, I have to tell people we're live via my phone. See, we're doing phone Discord as well. I'm having some technical problems with Discord interacting with the stream software I'm using. So long as nobody sneezes, we'll be fine. Well, so genres, I think that happened to a lot of people. The timings were weird. The condensed nature of it all was very strange. There was no cohesion. So, yeah, so for Summer Games Fest, like I said, okay, sorry, before I start doing promo stuff, and breathe. The reason why I want to dig into this today, the reason why I want to bring a bunch of people together is like, if an indie team comes to me and says, hey Will, we've been offered a slot at Summer Games Fest, should we do it? I want to be able to tell them, like, here's what the journos will see of what you do. Here's whether or not there is value. Because, for example, Whisker Squadron, the Star Fox spiritual successor, looks really, really good. They saved their exclusive for the OTK Games Expo, which was a 5-hour stream hosted by a streamer conglomerate called OTK, or One True King. And I think that they kind of got stiffed on the deal. Like, if I'm being perfectly honest, and this is not meant to be a diss on other creators, but, you know, the OTK showcase was, in my humble opinion, one of the weakest. At the same time, they announced they were launching a games publishing line, but alright, lads. But my point being is, like, if I'm gonna help indie peeps, I want to know. So today, we're going to be talking to, you know, journalists who are all fucking legends in their field. They're going to give us the breakdown on what they saw and how they perceive its value. And we're going to pick apart some of the moving pieces. And then later on, in maybe like a week or two, once all the data has solidified, I'm going to bring together a group of developers who are involved in Summer Games Fest so we can get kind of a comparison. It really seemed like this year the big push was wishlist, wishlist, wishlist. Which is great, because, like, it helps devs, and it's good. But whether or not those wish lists actually happened, whether or not the conversions actually went down, that is another kettle of monkeys. Anyway. Friends! Oh no, Alice, I completely agree with you. Like, wishlisting is a much lower barrier to entry than, like, pre-order now. And I'm happy to see that become the main call to action. That would make me very happy. Bismarck, Lagmeister, Watto, and welcome. Hello, hello. We're just kind of in the preamble. Yes, Bismarck, I hear you. I might have to ask, well, if any of the mods come on by, I might have to ask them very kindly to throw up a message if by the time our guests get in, no ping has gone out. Amos, you're okay, mate. You're fine. Oh, shush. This boy wants for nothing. Sorry, and again, friends, please forgive me while I'm nosing phone for a second. If you want to go grab yourself, like, snacks, water, cup of tea, now is the time. As I said, basically right now, the stream is being held together by a hope and a fucking prayer, so I can't use Discord on my rig right now. So that means I have to tell the world about our stream from my phone. It's frustrating. And yes, I do have to manually type out the feckin' URL for Okay, Square Peg, Watto and welcome. Hello, hello. Wolfcrad coming in. Again, please forgive me while I'm nosing phone. Lagmeister, I'll do you one better. The Nokia snap-out phones from the OG Matrix. No, my friend actually had one, and they were surprisingly good. Like, they had the same sturdy guts, but after a couple of years, out of absolutely fucking nowhere, he did the, like, pops it up, clicks it open, and the little snap-out mic piece just went flying. Good times, good times. Okay, who else do I need to tell? God, there are probably a whole bunch of people I should inform. But yeah, so friendos, we are going to have some proper industry legends coming to chat to us. I'm really looking forward to hearing their perspectives on this and kind of breaking it down. And I promise I'm not going to spend the whole time whinging about OTK, alright? Promise. But sorry, and the reason why I think this is important, like, not just from like a media deconstruction standpoint, but from a game standpoint, is that, like, I can't see how E3 will spring back to life next year. So this is what we're dealing with. So, like, how do you navigate this environment? You know, everything's now so decentralized. There's no, like, one big entity to bolt onto. So how do you become part of that? You know? Plus, we get to talk about things like Mix, who got shut down by the cops because apparently their fucking venue didn't have the right permits and things like that. Ah, good times. Anyway, how are you all doing? Sorry, while we're faffing around and just doing setup, how goes it?
Hey, looks like I get to smack you with my Prime sub this week.
Don't make it weird. But Orchazini, thank you for Blade Nora for 38 months. You know, no big deal. Just a small, like, Parmesan sprinkling of time. Blade Nora. So Bismarck. So the Mix is like an indie games showcase that happens at varying events, and the one that was supposed to be hosted at Summer Games Fest was shut down by the cops because the venue didn't have permission to have that kind of event. Didn't tell the event organizers. So basically, I'm trying to remember I'll get the specifics once the rest of our lovely guests are on. But so far as I understand, oh, and Vanderbeest, Watto, and thank you for my gloves. So far as I understand, the completionist, who his people name escapes me, continued to host the Mix on his stream after, and I think hosted like an after party or something. I need some more details. Oh yeah, no, Square Peg, like, you had to deal with me talking about this drunk, and that was, again, I have so much sympathy for you putting up with extremely drunk Will. But yeah, they were the only people that flubbed their Steam page. And the same day that they were announcing they're a publisher. Like... I'm trying to think of an equivocant biffing it, and I can't. But if you want to turn around to the entire games industry and say, hey, we are a group of streamers and we would like to publish your video game, and you go, did you get the Steam page ready? And they go, no. Like, how does that fill with confidence? Ugh. Well, and sorry, Squarepeg, I know I'm repeating stuff that we talked about, but yeah, they were shilling merch every, like, hour, half hour. But it was in such an awkward and forced manner. Like, I'm not against people selling merch during presses, alright? Fucking Devolver sold out. They had a buttload of Volvy merch that was gone like that. Brilliant. If Annapurna announced, you know, they were doing another round of, like, the, I don't know, Sayonara Wild Hearts cards or something like that during their presser, feckin' yo! But again, unless you'll want me to rant about it for the next 15 minutes while we wait for our guests, like, I can, but but I'd like to wait until we get our lovely guests in. The emergency 50% off Volvy merch gag. Yeah, honest, like, that was spot on. Okay, no, we're good. Oh yeah, the Volvy Pogs as well. Spot on. Okay. Rhino, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? Yeah, context is king here, buddy. Do you need help? Now, actually, Mega Boss, I will say, as humorous as it is, the text adventure... Please, don't make me mute you. Please, Rhino. Don't make me bring the thunder. But what I was going to say is, I don't know if it's still available, but there is a survival horror text-based game called Don't Shit Your Pants. And, okay, yeah, it's funny, because the whole goal is that you have a timer, and you have to try not to poo yourself. But in terms of, like, reactive systems and creating humor, like, it's a really good example. Getting users to think in real world terms, it does a great job. Like, yes, it's one big fart joke, but in terms of, like, a title that is worth studying for, like, taking complex systems and turning them into something funny, it is actually worth your time. Sorry, I guess you didn't expect me to talk about Don't Shit Your Pants, but I could do a fucking dissertation on that game. Okay. So, friends, we've got about 10 minutes before we get our lovely guests in. So, if you need a cup of tea, beverage, blood of your enemies, now is the time to go and grab it. Trying to get everything all set and ready. I'm just getting the... There we go. So, this is the official list of Summer Games Fest stuff. schedule together. Huh. Oh, and sorry, thank you kindly for asking. I have had it's been a very full-on morning. It's been a very full-on morning, but I've got very, very good coffee. I'm very much looking forward to chatting with our guests, because...
Amos, you're okay, buddy. You're fine.
Okay, bear with me a second. I know, it's so exciting watching Will text things on his phone. What a great start! Ah, Dinobot does its job. Love to see it. Love to see it. Thank you for letting me know. Hey!
3 cheers for Dino.
I can have 2 bells. How about that? Dinobot doing its job. 2 bells. Ding ding. Okay. Amos, shush. Airman, Watto, and welcome. Come on in, friends, come on in. Greybeard, hello, hello. Alright. Just trying to wrangle everyone at once. Right.
Reactor online. Sensors online. Weapons online. All systems nominal.
What do you call someone who is wearing cowboy clothes?
I don't know.
Dressing.
Lizzie, alongside all of the mod work, thank you for 56 months. How are you doing? Yeah, Dragonix... Well, okay, no. Dino was late by about 20 minutes. And our guests will be here in about 10. So, feckin' we. Amos, stop, dude. God. Oh. You may see an individual physically driven to distraction. Alright. Just getting everything together. There we go. Yeah, for Dino, that's on time. Okay. So yeah, so friends, we have guests joining us in about 10 minutes. Oh, 5 minutes. So if you want to get yourself a cup of tea, cup of coffee, now is the time. We're going to be talking about Summer Games Fest. I'm going to be joined by Nathan, Gavin, and Mike, who are all incredible journos in their respective spheres. So yeah, we're going to be picking apart Summer Games Fest, trying to work out, like, was it worth it? Was it valuable? Thankfully, Lizzie, I'm actually into coffee number 3. So, aside from being stressed to the point of probably popping a vein in my forehead, I'm doing really good. But yeah, I've got the Summer Games Fest list up here, so we can kind of pick apart a bunch of the good stuff. Interestingly, Annapurna is now showing that they're going to be doing a showcase, but not until the 29th, which is odd. Oh, sorry, no! I guess it's time to pop on the kettle. A red burning dragon. How about no? No, well, Greybeard, today is a day where we're gonna talk about video games and the games industry. We don't need to focus on my shite. We don't need to focus on my nonsense. But thank you very much for asking. Oh yeah, Air Dragon, Monkey Island X Sea of Thieves hype. In fact, touch wood. Our good friend John, who works over on Sea of Thieves in the video department, will be swinging on by not this Friday but next Friday. So yeah, we'll get a chance to have a little banter behind the scenes. I kind of get now why John was cheekily saying like, oh, you know, I tell you what, I can come join you on show after this date. I should have realised, but everything happened so much. Excuse me, so much. Yeah. Actually, honest, that did crack me up that both Devolver and PC Gamer went for the same bit. Like, that cracked me up something fierce. Okay, so Greybeard, the Sea of Thieves Monkey Island thing will either be much like the Pirates of the Caribbean missions that were added, or it'll be a new kind of like area to the map. It's hard to know right now which way it'll go, but judging from the announcement, I think there'll be like standalone missions. So maybe we'll have a crack at them this Friday. I'll suggest it to the regular Sea of Thieves crew. But the way it works is that Sea of Thieves, you log in, there's the whole map, and you are free to do whatever you want. To Spiralab, Watto and welcome, coming in. When you do the Pirates of the Caribbean, it's kind of like a little standalone instance chapter that you and your friends play. And that's kind of cool. Much like with certain Tall Tales, which can have you instanced away. But honestly, I'm kind of okay with either. I'd prefer them to be added to the map as a whole, but that's just me, Well, Greybeard, both Pirates of the Caribbean and Monkey Island are owned by Disney, which is why this is happening. Because if you think about it, so LucasArts Games made a whole slew of incredible titles back in the 90s, including the whole of the including the entirety of the Monkey's Island games. That then transferred to Disney when Disney bought LucasArts, and then that's all under one big old Mousian blob. So it's entirely possible. It's entirely possible. It's Amos's feels on the whole thing. Okay. Alright. And we've got both Mike and Gavin waiting for us on the line. So let's start bringing our crew together. Things are going to be a bit of a mess for a second, friends, because I've got to make this make sense. It's hope that this works. Don't worry about it, friends. Don't worry about it. Oh, okay. To throw a sock at Amos in just a second. All right. Let's see if we can make this work. Alright, bear with me, friends. Bear with me. This might be a disaster. Hello there!
Hello, hello.
I apologise for throwing you immediately into the rumble.
I mean, that's fine with me. I'm used to rumbling. Let's get down and dirty. Square up.
Okay. And we should have Nathan in just a moment. If you have a camera, you are welcome to throw it on in. I've been doing battle with technical problems today, and a very, very needy puppy, so if you hear the sound of a dog in distress in the other room, they're fine. They're just annoyed that they're not getting cuddles.
Oh, you can attend to the puppy. You know, we're not going to fight you on having a puppy in the middle of the stream.
No, he is being a little terror, and anyway. Hello. First up, Mike, it is an absolute pleasure to meet you. Thank you for jumping in on this. Oh, but we've lost your audio.
Oh, you didn't lose it. I muted. I keep forgetting. Like I have a Elgato with a physical mute, so I turn it off when I'm not, just in case there's, other stuff. I have like 3 cats, so.
Oh, don't worry about it. I have a loud dog and an even louder skeleton. So there we go.
That is a pretty big skeleton. Where'd you get that?
I got it at Target. It was just there before Halloween season, and I took full advantage.
Fair enough. It's an expensive looking skeleton, though.
Indubitably. So, Gav, are you bringing video?
I thought I'd avoid video this time, aside from the fact that I don't have my camera hooked up at the moment. I'm still coming out of the fog that was Summer Games Fest, and I probably do not look all that great.
Okay. So, friends, you'll have to draw your own conclusions as to...
If you want to grab my avatar off Twitter and just paste it on there, that's about as good as it's going to get.
Usually I would say yes, but I have had enough technical problems that I'm not touching anything. Like, I consider myself a professional, and right now this is held together with duct tape and glue. So...
That is how professionals tend to work. I didn't go to this year's Summer Games Fest, but I've done the E3, and people don't realize the E3, when you're working it, it's a marathon.
Yeah.
Like, it's like 2-3 days. Well, it's probably like a week and a half, to be real, just like moving around.
This is why I wanted to bring all of you together, is because, like, 1, it is always a huge thing. 2, it's very difficult to get a full perspective on it. It's like, if you're attending, it's hard to see all the announcements that are going out. But if you're on the outside, it's very difficult to see what it really was like on the ground. This is why I wanted to bring you all together, and we'll have a chat about this. I'm just summoning our third and final guest.
Oh, you're all good. That gives me time to put final touches on an article.
Woohoo!
Never stop working.
No.
Never stop.
If I look a little haggard, it's a wonderful game that I'm helping with, but I had to do some B-roll and footage for them last night because I forgot to do it on Sunday when I should have.
Yeah, I know how that is. I've been up like 4 a.m. trying to finish a review for the embargo or stuff like that. So yeah, no, I know that feeling.
Yup. Okay, so while we're in the kind of preamble, Asari's asking the first important question: what are your cats' names?
The oldest is Cricket, then it's Chip and Ambrosia, of which we did not name the oldest and the last one. So Cricket and Ambrosia were not our choices. We just got them and they were named already, and we just stuck with it.
Super cute.
They are super cute.
Nathan will be with us in just a second. So my wonderful guests, if you need to get coffee, water, snacks, or tea, now is the time.
I got a Red Bull and a water. Let's go.
Ooh, that's a good idea. Let me get a Red Bull.
Yeah, let's get weird with it. I actually broke my no energy drinks rule throughout covering Summer Games Fest.
I think you have to, because even on the ground, like, I try not to drink a ton of soda because I'm trying to lose weight, but at the same time, I was just like, hey, guess what? I'm gonna shotgun this Coke, like, right now.
Let's fucking go!
Yeah. Like multiple times in the day, I was just like, I'm dead on my feet, and would run over to the bar that they had set up in the place, and they were like, would you like a drink? Can we mix you something? I was just like, I need a can of Coke. I need a Red Bull. I need whatever you have in there.
Mm-hmm. Whilst before we get started, like, I was telling my lovely audience, like, the first time I did those little 5-hour energy drinks that look like poppers was my first E3, because we'd been dragged out to the Saddle Ranch, as everyone used to be. I don't know if that's still the case. But we were hurting the next day, and so just me and my colleague, we looked at them in the little Sega snack area. We looked at each other and we just went, "Death or glory."
Yeah, I've only done one of those little 5-hour energies like once, and that was like coming back from a concert. Instead of staying, we just decided like, no, let's just go home. And I hit one of the 5-hour energies on the way back, and it did work. But it worked enough that I was kind of like, I don't think you're supposed to be drinking these on a regular basis.
No. I think the 5 hours is a rough estimate.
It is, but it also depends on what you've had during the day. So if you're like regularly drinking water, it'll, I don't know, 2 or 3 hours. If you like take one just after you've eaten food, then it'll get metabolized with everything else, and that's how it gets the full 5 hours out of you.
Ah, so when one has only had coffee and a hope and a prayer in the morning, throwing a 5-hour on top of that is going to be, well, I mean, I experienced it, but you know what I mean.
Yeah. You're basically asking for a crash at that point.
Look, it was my first E3 working. I was young. I had very little regard.
What year was it?
13. I know. That makes me kind of like the E3 baby of the squad. I understand.
Well, my first E3 was like when it was in Atlanta.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so I wasn't going professionally. So back in the day, I will say as a preamble, again, as I've been through a lot of these, you used to, if you were in the game industry, and that counted retail, you used to be able to go to E3.
Well, yeah, I mean, like, retailers used to be the big people you were courting at E3.
Right. So, like, if you worked at, like, a GameStop or an EB Games or anything like that back in the day, you could have gone to E3.
Yeah.
Like, you could have signed up for passes and gotten them. Like, you would have had to get there yourself. So when it was in Atlanta, like, me and 2 other dudes that worked up at my store, and this was the big year of the N64 was being shown off, I think.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's how far back. We all piled in a Jeep because one of us was old enough. Like, two of us were in high school, but one of us was like early college. And we piled into a Jeep and we just road trip down to Atlanta and did
Nice.
E3 as like, stupid high schoolers, but like at the time it was the coolest thing ever.
That sounds fucking rad.
You got me beat because I know that's like late 90s when it was in Atlanta. My first one was 2009. And that's when it was in Los Angeles in early June, not mid June. And a lot of that show is kind of a blur, but I do remember they showed Left 4 Dead 2 and Super Mario Galaxy 2. But back then, I wasn't in the position I was in now. I was just kind of a journalist trying to make it in the industry in various ways. And so I was piled in a car with a bunch of other people who took 2 days to drive down, and then we split a hotel room 6 ways to cover it. The glory days of journalism, ladies.
that is how a lot of people used to do it. Like, like even from some sites that you're like, oh, they're veterans. When they go to E3, it's still like, like 4 people. And it used to be a hotel room. Now it's an Airbnb. We've moved up in the world. Like, so now it's like 4 people or, 6 people, 8 people in an Airbnb, just like rolling in and out of that one room.
I think this is where the camaraderie between journos and indie devs comes together, because they're all living the same very, very low budget life.
Yes.
See, this is the thing. I feel like an absolute bastard now because, my first one was the Rome 2 campaign, right? And that was on a full Sega AAA budget. And so, Sega being a big international company, they have deals with certain hotel chains. So, like, I've still got, like, about 50 photos just of my E3, like, hotel room. Like, it had the full LA. Like, there was a small room between my room and my bathroom, which is like a large mirror for like getting ready and things like that.
Oh, you got fancy.
I got fancy. I got that wiggling finger of Uncle Sonic. I got that treatment.
Which sounds nice, except for the fact that there's no reason. Like the reason the 6 people to a hotel room or whatever works is because no one is at the hotel room.
Yeah.
Particularly long, except for like showering and sleeping.
Exactly.
Because once these start, so E3, Summer Games Fest is slightly different, but E3, once it started, usually it'd be like we're actually at events. Say E3 is 3 days.
Yeah.
We're actually at events like 4 or 5 days prior to that. So like a lot of the stuff that's being announced, like we've already seen it and gotten the presentation. And so when it's actually announced at the showcases and the press events, then we just push out what we've already written.
I tell you what, so Nathan says he's having some minor technical issues. So we'll introduce Nathan when they come on in. But like, because you're getting into things like Judges Day and preview stuff. And I think that really helps contextualize, what was and what we now have with Summer Games Fest. So, let's call this the official start. Hello, everyone! If for some strange reason you haven't met my dumb face, hi, I'm Will. A he-him variant. What was my old joke? 3-time E3 attendee. I've been covering and obsessing over E3 for as long as I've known of its existence. And we used to do a show called E3 Bowl, where we would go through all of the press conferences, but we'd get all suited and booted and pretend to be sportscasters. And just come up with like nonsense sports moves and things like that. It's the man of the hat trick, it's Don Matrick and shit like that.
Don, I remember him.
Yeah, so I have a bizarre encyclopedic knowledge of E3 presses. So I'm joined by, I'm just in order of people I asked. So I'm joined by Gavin Sheehan, and I believe you're with Bleeding Cool News.
I am with Bleeding Cool News. Check us out at bleedingcool.com.
Would you like to give these lovely individuals a little bit of your caliber, your backstory?
I've been the games editor for about 4 years now at Bleeding Cool. I started there in 2017 after having worked over a decade in the Salt Lake City area, writing for different publications and freelancing on a national basis. I humbly am very happy to be in the job that I'm in, and also gloat that I am in a career where I play video games for a living and write about it.
Which is dead easy and not hard at all.
No, it's the easiest job in the world. I've told people what the actual job is behind what we do, and their eyes cross, like, listening to it. They don't understand, like, it's a cool job, but it's still a job. So, but I'm very happy to be doing what I'm doing, and at the outlet I'm at and everything. Yeah, things awesome right now.
Lovely. And we are joined by Mike, who was introduced to us by Sam Makovic. So actually, it's my first time meeting Mike as well. So hello. Would you mind giving these lovely Mother Hubbards a little introduction about yourself?
Hello. So yeah, I have been a games journalist and reviewer for probably 13 to 14 years now. I've been doing it quite a while, so I currently write at fanbyte.com, all about Final Fantasy 14, just focusing on that.
Wait, Final Fantasy 14, the award-winning MMO with free trial up to level 6.
Exactly.
Sorry, my friend would gut me if I didn't at least mention that once. Sorry, please continue.
So I don't have to worry about a lot of the other stuff anymore, unless I want to. And then before that, I was at PC Mag. And then before that, I was at US Gamer, first as news editor and then as reviews editor, which is where I got the full scrum of it. And then before that, I was writing for gamesindustry.biz, which is, still around, doing mostly B2B game industry news.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, and hims are fine for you both?
Yep.
Yes.
Brilliant. For context of the conversation, because we're going to be getting into the guts of, Summer Games Fest and what was. So, Mike, you were kind of like myself, watching it from the digital eyes above. And Gavin, you were actually physically there, right?
Yes, I was.
Okay. So, and to the our lovely viewership, if you have any thoughts, questions, or otherwise, just make sure to @Viking Blonde in chat so I can see them, and I will pose the questions to our lovely guests when I get the chance. Caffeine, I still have no regard for myself, but I'm no longer young. Right, so you were talking about essentially Judges' Day, so let's go back in time. Let's do the Mr. Caffeine, the diddle. I told you, I've got a weird knowledge of E3. So what did the E3 of yore look like? Because it doesn't start with even the pressers. Like, it doesn't even start with Fire Day. It starts before that. Oh, Mike, you're muted again.
Oh, sorry. So, how do I say this? So, Judges Week is actually a separate thing, even before that. So, you'll have Judges Week, and that is like a good, say, 4 days where certain judges, people, usually like one from every major site, would go out and be basically ferried through just appointment after appointment, which are all hands-on game sessions with upcoming games for the purpose of, as the title says, deciding what is partially going to be, game of the year at the end of the year.
Yeah.
And Judges Week was always done. It is run by Jeff Keighley and crew. He is the one who has organized it. So it has always been adjacent to E3, but kind of a part of it. So that's like 4 days, probably like 2 weeks before E3.
Yeah. So, friends, the TLDR is, if you've ever wondered back in the day how various stands would get the Best in Show awards at E3, despite it having only just started, that's how. Have you both been part of Judges Week?
I've done it 3 times.
Gav?
I've never been invited to be a part of it. I've gone to the
Keely!
If either of you have an ear with Keely, feel free to drop my name. But no, I've yet to be a part of it. However, I have been a part of the parade, if you will, because up until E3 got postponed due to COVID, every year you would go out in like mid to late May and you would go do and see demos and things like that. Like I remember the most vivid one of recent times was the Call of Duty Black Ops 4 reveal, where they took us to a giant air hangar and did the reveal there, and we played the game live and all sorts of stuff. But all of the people who were part of Judges Week were there trying the demo out, and then they got on a bus and immediately went off to like a Kingdom Hearts thing.
To do something else, yeah.
Exactly.
And that's how it was with Destiny 2's reveal was the same way. So I was at one of the Judges Weeks where Destiny 2 was revealed. And that's how it worked. Like, basically, we were at, I want to say, like a Square Enix thing. And then we got done playing whatever the games were at the time and got on a bus, went to the Destiny 2 event, which had other people, already at it, like influencers and that such. And then once that was done and we had done playing that, we got back on the bus to another thing. So, like, Judges Week is literally, like, for that, however long of the day, they own you.
Yeah.
And they are ferrying you from thing to thing that you are at for that entire, like, couple days. So that's separate. And then E3 itself, when the E3 was on, E3 is like, 3 or 4 days. But probably the 4 or 5 days prior to E3 hitting, for the public, we would be playing games. So
yeah. Apologies for interrupting. We've got Nathan as well.
Hi, Nathan.
There we go. Hey, how's it going?
Yo.
Sorry, I had to fix all of Discord, which, you always have to do when you're using it for anything.
It's actually this whole stream is being held together by a hope and a prayer because Discord's being awkward. So if this looks a little even shoddy by my standards, understand that this is a shed held together with duct tape. If you wish to bring your camera, there we go.
There we go.
Gavin is not joining us on camera because Gavin has just gotten back from Summer Games Fest. And I completely understand that level of exhaustion.
Yeah.
So, friends, our late addition to the squad, Nathan Grayson, formerly of Kotaku, Waypoint, and a...
No, not Waypoint. Never Waypoint.
Not Waypoint?
No.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, formerly of Kotaku and the Washington Post.
That's
the Washington Post launcher.
Mm-hmm.
Nathan, my apologies. And...
It happens.
Everything's been happening so much. So we were just doing a little, here's what E3 used to be primer, just because I didn't want to get into the meat of it until you were with us, but we were just covering how the varying PRs would be ferrying you all through buses to event after event in that pre-E3 block.
Well, yeah, that's usually a Judges Week thing. So, like I said, the pre-E3 block of 4 or 5 is basically us going around to some appointments. So, Ubisoft will have a thing with all of Ubisoft's games at one location.
Yeah.
So we can play them, do the interviews, and write about them so that when if you've ever wondered how we get articles out as soon as the game is announced at a press event, that's how. We've played them probably a couple of days before, But that doesn't mean that E3 isn't just still full of interviews, demos, running around, because a lot of it's supposed to be in the convention center or whatever venue it is, but a lot of it is still offsite. And as the years went on, more stuff kept getting moved offsite. So like Bethesda was off in Hollywood and all that other stuff. So
apologies for laughing. It's I never I never did the press junket tour, but that feckin' sky bridge every half an hour would be like a high-speed highway.
Yeah.
People who'd been booked at like opposite ends of the convention center all were doing off-site stuff. Sorry.
Yeah, you try to plan so that you're not in different halls, but I've definitely done the sprint like, my next appointment is in 5 minutes at the complete other hall, so...
You definitely lose about 15 pounds in 3 days just walking that in convention center.
Yeah, it's much harder. The PAXs, I tend to prefer PAX as a show, just because usually everything is pretty. It's more chill, and two, everything is pretty close. So
agreed.
It's a bit less walking.
Okay, last one from me before we get into Summer Games Fest. But just like from having worked E3, it is the most trade show of the trade shows. Like, while the show floor is very, very ostentatious, it's not really designed for fun. It's designed to impress, certainly, but I don't know. It's always such a strange beast. Okay, but now the squad is together. We are all here. Hello. Just very quickly, thank you all for joining me on this one. It has been a deluge hose of news and events and nonsense that have summed up the Summer Games Fest, and I wanted to crack into that with you all. The one thing that I wanted to touch on, just I guess for framing, is that like Keighley is not a random entity that has come into this. Like,
no.
He's been kind of a little bit of a nexus of it's E3 but not the ESA's like actual showcase E3 type stuff.
Yeah, he's always been a part of it. I don't actually Nathan. Do you know where he came from?
Yeah. He used to be a games journalist. He was a journalist back in the day. Did a bunch of things. Off and on, some stuff written, some stuff video, then started kind of making a bigger name for himself by doing like, what was it, The Last Word or something like that series, where it was basically these like post-release kind of almost documentaries on various games and companies and things like that, or The Final Word, something like that. I forget what it was called. In the middle of all that, he also had a major-ish scandal where basically like, there's the famous picture of him with like Doritos and Mountain Dew. And he sort of became the poster child for like, this is what's wrong with the games press. It's too deep in the pockets of various companies and things like that.
As well, Florence threw his little hand grenade into the industry as he quit.
Right. And so it was this thing of like, it's kind of wild to me that Jeff has gone from that, where he was sort of, for a minute, I think emblematic of like, or at least what people thought the games press was, to being this like figure he's no longer a journalist, obviously. He's more of a host and an entertainer and all of that. But now he's this person with, I think at least among a lot of people, quite a bit of credibility. I think that he sort of created the role that he always wanted to occupy, which was never really to be a journalist exactly, because he's more of a relationship builder than he is somebody who's like, I'm going to go after companies. I'm going to do hard-hitting reporting on them. And so he went from this moment of like people saying, haha, he's this guy who associates with all these brands, to like, yep, he's the guy who associates with all the brands, and like creates this long-form commercial in the Game Awards that also happens to have tons of announcements and things like that.
And like, he's a nice guy, but it is worth noting that he's always sort of had these connections. Because a lot of people don't realize that his dad,
oh yeah, that's right,
is like
wild.
An engineer / creator of IMAX and stuff.
What?
David Keighley.
Oh, yeah.
He's very big. So Jeff has always been like a big part of Hollywood.
I mean, he's
Wow.
also
No
been
idea.
specifically associated with Hollywood award shows. He was part of a one of the original attempts at a video game award show when he was, I think, 15 years old.
What?
Let's see, what was the like?
I like that you're breaking Will's brain right now.
Because I knew about his
Let's
involvement with
see,
the Spike Game Awards.
No,
but I didn't know
like,
about
if you look
before
at-
that.
IMAX and David Keeley, that's his family.
Let's see, what was it? Because yeah, his parents also got him this this gig working on this award show when he was really young.
Oh my word! It's all coming together.
Unfortunately, this is impossible to Google because of that kid who crashed the Game Awards last year. And so you just get articles about him.
So yeah, like basically,
Oh,
you got this
uh,
nascent.
Sorry to interrupt. Just
go ahead.
Stream Nilo says it was Cybermania.
There we go.
94, the Ultimate Game
Yeah.
Awards.
And if you ever want to like have some great content, just watch that award show with your stream. It is so of its time and just deeply enjoyable to watch.
I am absolutely
Yeah.
going to do that. Thank you, and Nilo, thank you as well.
Yeah,
Oh, there's the whole thing.
He's been sort of coming from that nascent games journalism side back in the day, where if you got in, like almost really anyone could get in as long as you had the resources to start a site, get there, and all that. And the Hollywood connections and just that general drive, like he's just happened to be at the nexus of all of that stuff to come together to become sort of this corporate entertainment figure for games. And like I said, he's a nice guy, but like you can see all of the bits coming together, and he just happened to be like the right figure in the right spot
Yes.
with all the connections to bring that together. And so like as E3 was going on, he was doing again Judges Week and some other stuff. And then you could sort of feel him pulling away, and then he like did the hard pull away when E3 like fell. Like he was like, this is the time that I can really
Yeah.
jump on. He's like, I'm already doing the Game Awards. Now I can really like sink my teeth in, and Summer Games Fest can become what I thought E3 should have been, which is just E3 again.
Which really happened because of the pandemic, because I think that was 2019 was the year that he decided he was going to pull away, and then 2020 really just kind of solidified the idea of, well, if this ain't coming back, I'm going to go do my own thing.
Yeah. Because to my knowledge, I've not always like as his own entity. Sometimes for like IGN and places, like he was doing the off-site coverage of E3 anyway.
Yeah, he was
always
posted
around.
up in the Xbox theater just doing his own thing with them.
Yeah.
And I remember having to run back and forth in 2018 to catch a couple of presentations that were exclusive in that building that he helped secure with Microsoft. And then you'd have to run back over across the way through lines just to get back to your other appointment. And it's genius in the idea, like if you have all of these games that you can't see on the E3 floor sitting, 1,000 feet away in a separate building, you now have become an attraction that rivals them while still being a part of them.
Yeah. I know we all know this.
Yeah,
but again,
so he was already kind of doing what the Game Award or what Summer Game Fest would ultimately become, even before he took it online and made it its own show.
Yeah.
He was building a little annex of E3 with the ultimate goal, I guess, now of overtaking E3.
He became Devolver Digital without the tacky parking lot setup.
Yeah. And then on top of that, he made the Game Awards, which already kind of arguably, even pre-pandemic, were starting to like have bigger announcements than E3. Because again, E3 was just waning in relevance and nobody could figure out what to do with it.
Yeah, because like back in the day, so like we were talking, like what was your first E3? Like, back in like 2011, 2012, like E3 was it.
Yeah.
Like you had E3, maybe Tokyo Game Show. I don't know if Gamescom had started yet.
Back then, yeah, Gamescom was around.
Yeah. But it wasn't as big. But then like now, not only do you have all of the PAXs, Gamescom, Tokyo Game Show, K-Star, and some of the other ones. There's just so many. Yeah. There's just so many. K-Star's, I want to say Korean, Chinese, one of the two. There's other like non-shows that we don't really think about in Korea and China and other places like that. I've been to one before.
And even stuff like Paris Games Week and the Luca Comics and Games Festival. And
Tribeca is doing games now. There's just so many ways to show off your game, and that's in the idea of a general showcase, which you don't need anymore.
No.
Like, if your name is big enough, it doesn't matter. You can just announce the game when you want to announce the game.
Like, I know we all know this, but again, more for framing than for anything. Like, Nintendo Direct basically showed that you don't need to physically be there. Like, Nintendo Direct basically went, if you have an audience, you can just talk to them, even as a massive publisher. And
in a sense, they were using the Direct to hype up what was happening at E3, because even though the Direct was happening and we were covering it, like they were showing that the opening day of E3, and then you'd go and walk on the floor and see just the massive displays. Like, I still remember the giant spread out that they had for the remake of Link's Awakening on the Switch, where it was its own like little paradise that you would walk into, and they had all these miniature figures. And it's like, if I think at least here in America, like, you still needed that to a degree at that point in time. Not so much anymore, but that's a debate for another day. But they were clearly using Direct as an advertisement for, this is what we have coming, but if you happen to be in LA, here's what you can see.
Okay, so it started very much closer to the traditional presser. And again,
they also had like their Nintendo Treehouse specials during E3 and stuff like that after their directs. But yeah, I think that over time they really, and also like Nintendo had been pulling away from E3 for a long time. I mean, like, it was absent for a couple years at various points prior to any of the more recent shows where they started using directs. They had their own thing for a while called Space World. Like, they did all these different other things that were like meant to be sort of Nintendo specific. They were always a little bit, I think, hesitant to really throw their lot in with E3.
Yeah, and part of what E3, what you saw before it like died, were like the big companies moving out of the convention center and onto their own thing. Because what they really needed wasn't the convention center. What they needed was the fact that E3 was the thing we were all converging on LA for like a week and a half. So they would know that they could say, hey, we're going to show you Luigi's Mansion 3 and 6 other titles in this one warehouse. Please come see it, play it, write about it.
Yeah.
Which is the only thing that's really missing from the direct model. And especially for Nintendo, who does not like to let anything out where they cannot control it. Like, the direct model is great to show the game, but if you want us to write previews or do interviews or anything like that, having E3 or a PAX or whatever, where everyone, from the media side and influencer side is there in one spot, and that for like a good week, that does help in that, as opposed to trying to do that elsewhere. And
we
some
were seeing
companies do that, but Nintendo is not one of those companies. Like, Nintendo is like, you need to come to us.
But we were seeing a lot of splintering, especially between 2017 and 2019 before everything shut down, because EA separated themselves a bit from it and started EA Play up on Hollywood Boulevard. You had Ubisoft doing their own presentation in a theater, and then like the booth itself was kind of there for you to go check stuff out, but the main deal for all of their announcements and previews was somewhere else off-site. I mentioned Devolver. Even though I made fun of it a little bit, the fact is that they take over a parking lot across the street from the LA Convention Center as almost a fuck you to the industry of like, we're not paying your fees to go sit in your convention center and be one of 100. We're going to do our own thing with fresh air.
I mean, fresh air, though, is also burning hot in those trailers. So, trade-offs.
I still don't understand why anybody thought it was a good idea to hold a convention in June in Los Angeles with a bunch of video games where the equipment has to constantly be running. I mean of all the dumbass ideas.
I hate knowing why.
If I could theorize, probably because the LA Convention Center is in high demand. When it first started out, video games did not have much cultural cachet. And so that was the time they got it, became a tradition. And then they stuck with it because it was a tradition.
Yeah. And to say, as we brought up, like, E3 was a trade. Like, the point of E3 originally was companies would invite retailers. And so E3 would be where they would do events to show, this is what we have for the next year or so.
Yes, please stop.
Or change.
I don't know, our new Transformers game or what have you. And I'm sorry, I know I'm telling you all stuff but that's where, back when they had weight, people like GameStop would decide how many units per store were getting purchased.
Right.
Please
That's the
Please
other
load X amount of Dreamcasts inside a Toys R Us.
Right. Well, yeah, and that's the other part that sticks out about all of it. And what makes E3 especially a dinosaur at this point is that even like the element of, press and media and people being like that or people like that being there for it, that was just not vestigial, but like they were just sort of, hanging on to this larger thing that served an entirely different purpose when it began. And then it sort of evolved into this like press and media circus. And then after that, after everything sort of, went much more definitively online, as in once we moved away from magazines and then started embracing blogs and websites like that. Yeah. And then even further started embracing YouTube and content creators and Twitch streamers. Each one of these evolutions made E3 make less and less sense.
Yeah.
And also, like, that old style, like, you don't need to, like, if you want to show what your new thing is, you can now do that over Zoom. Like, you can have a call with the executives. Like, you can just have a call with GameStop executives and not have to fly anywhere or do anything. Like, and so E3 is always, like, probably for maybe the last 4 years of it, was just like, what are we doing here? And it started doing this thing where it's like, well, we want to kind of also be a consumer show, but PAX is already doing that. And Gamescom is already doing that better in that it has press days and general consumer days. Like, here's the media and industry side, and then we also will do a consumer side. And they're rigidly segmented.
I worked the Saturday of a Gamescom. I've seen hell on earth.
Yeah.
That was my NAMM flashback face there. Like, I've seen more humans than the eye can understand in one convention center.
Yeah, and so E3 started.
Go ahead.
Yeah, E3 started adding consumer stuff, but the problem is, like, if you're actually a consumer-focused show, then you need a bunch of other things. Like, you need community panels. You need stuff to build connections. Like, your interviews are not just press events. They need to be Q&As, and stuff like that. And that's the stuff that PAX and others would do that E3 just didn't have.
Okay.
And so it was just suffering by itself.
And that's another thing that I think has caused a lot of the splintering is that E3 started selling tickets to the general public, but provided no public days and press days.
Yes.
So we were stuck shoulder to shoulder having to fight our way to get to appointments among thousands of people who we were cutting off in line to do our appointments with, and now you got like a group of angry gamers right behind you, or you're trying to do some kind of presentation in a cramped space because they gave the bigger space away to the paid ticket holders. Yeah. So it became harder for us to do our jobs in the long run in those later years.
So the dinosaur is dead, and now
it is replaced.
Now it is replaced with Summer Games Fest. A deluge of media events, a physical space. I think that's the long and short of it. I don't think there was any other components. And also a tie-in with Steam, which we'll get to probably when we start talking about OTK. I promise I'm not going to rant about OTK, all right? I promise. My lot have had to get my feelings on it quite a bit. So, the media events, or I should say like the streams, started, what was it, like the Thursday afternoon. Gav, when were you like boots on the ground?
I was there Thursday, and I was there for the initial presentation. If you happen to be in the area and you were one of the people that was attending, you got a ticket to go check it out at the YouTube Theater, which was a mix of content creators, journalists, and paid ticket holders who got in. It wasn't completely full, which I honestly don't blame, because it was at, like, the YouTube Theater's in the middle of LA on a Thursday, you know? So I understand the idea of, like, not everybody is going to be able to attend, but it was pretty packed for what it was.
Okay.
And it was basically one of those events where you kind of knew everybody, right? Like, I walked in and automatically had, like, 15 different conversations of, I'd seen you in a minute, right? And it felt like going to the Game Awards, except it was an hour shorter. It was one presentation, right? It was, and no awards in the middle. It was just, here's the next trailer, here's our next presentation. Hey, here's Nick Cage, who just randomly came out on stage and talked with Jeff. Here's the next presentation. Here's a guy that's going to talk about this game. And they just ran through a lot of things that, even if they weren't a part of Summer Games Fest, that was the big, like, coming out party for them. Like, Prince of Persia was a shock to a lot of people.
Yeah.
And we will say, if you are the one attending the event, like, when these press events are happening, if you are the one that's in the show, you're actually not covering it.
Well, it's really hard to,
because
you can
try.
You can like be in Slack and like relay information to like people that you're working with before they get it, because like there's a little bit of lag on the stream. You can, like, when I was at WAPO, like, we had a system where you could input directly into sort of like a live update file, and so you could kind of, you know, functionally live blog and have that appear alongside longer articles that other people on your team were writing.
Yeah.
It's like there are ways to do it, but it's not efficient.
Yeah,
It's definitely
and the
like,
Wi-Fi is usually bad. Usually these are theater venues, so there's not a lot of desk space. Also, although sometimes they do have press areas. So generally, like, if you're the one that's going to the thing, you are not the one covering that thing. Like, somebody else is watching the stream just like everybody else at home.
Well, so this is one of the
from
things
the hotel.
This is one of the things I find so interesting about the Sphere now. And obviously, this is Nathan's field of expertise, but the co-streaming has created this massive media spread of individuals. I mean, I did it, who are basically watching the Game Awards and adding their own banter, commentary, snark, or otherwise.
right. And this used to happen, like, you know, this was already a thing to an extent with like Giant Bomb back in the day. Sites like that. I mean, you know, IGN doesn't do the commentary over it, but they have their own stream going on all throughout Summer Game Fest and things like that, where they're also doing their own interviews in between the major shows and things like that. So, I mean, that element's has always been there. But yeah, to your point, I think now that co-streaming has really opened up and pretty much anyone can do it, it definitely changes, you know, where people get their information. But I mean, I think that's pretty true for kind of every form of news now. When there's any major news event, you can pretty much guarantee that both on YouTube and Twitch, there will be major streamers watching things and, you know, either adding commentary or annotating what they're seeing and hearing, things like that. I mean, the kind of major flashpoint of any of that to me, and this is, you know, definitely different from Summer Game Fest and things like that, was the Johnny Depp Amber Heard trial. When, you know, suddenly you had all these people who were like video game YouTubers or whatnot pivoting really hard into being like, I'm a Depp Heard influencer now. This is what I talk about. Like, if you scroll down in their videos, like the month before, they'd been doing Elden Ring content.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, you get all these people now who are just like, I'm going to be an expert in whatever, or a quote unquote expert in whatever I need to be in order to get views and hits. And like, you know, it makes more sense for a lot of these people to pivot to covering Summer Game Fest, obviously, because that's more their wheelhouse. But just in general, you know, I think that like people's main sources of news in a lot of cases are these like sort of secondhand layers of, well, now I see the thing, and the person who tells me what to think about the thing is my favorite content creator, or a content creator who happens to be really on the ball this particular week or month or whenever something occurs.
I definitely put myself into the latter, certainly not the former. But here's where the split starts, and this, again, why I wanted to bring all three of you together, because from those of us sitting at home, so like Summer Games Fest happens, Keela gets upstaged by Nick Cage, we get surprised with a few like really interesting announcements, there's loads to talk about, and immediately we watching from the outside are immediately into Data Devs and then Devolver. So Gav, what happened on the ground from there? Like, so Fest ends
without doing my hour by hour recap. Basically, we leave the theater. We have a couple hours to go and get checked into hotels, change clothes, shower, rest, and then usually, except for this year, there's a party the first night that was going to be the mix, but the event got canceled, and I believe did the live stream get killed too? I wasn't sure about that.
Okay. So what happened was...
what happened to the mix?
Okay,
there was a venue,
we got a last-minute announcement telling us that the event had been canceled because they did not have the permits.
So it got shut down.
Yeah.
Right.
Then, what's his name? The completionist. He was like, fuck it, I'm hosting, I guess, and...
Yeah. Most everybody basically said, okay, fuck it, I went and I got a burger and hung out with a few people and caught up on stuff and actually got a decent night's rest before the event happened, which in the middle of all of that, I went and picked up all my creds to go attend the event. And then, like others, this is an entire story unto itself. Others every night went to the JW out of, just out of like nostalgia's sake. And then that was pretty much my evening, was just like that, catching up with people, like hammering out a couple articles. But ultimately, it would have been I would have gone to the mix and played a bunch of demos while being essentially background art for the live stream. We don't know what anything else would have come from that, but that's basically what it would have been, because every night there's always a pre-party to like see everybody. And you get a chance to like chat with Jeff for a second. You also get to meet some of the other big wigs. Like I remember last year, I think Phil from Xbox showed up for like 5 minutes and said his hellos and then was gone.
It sounds like Phil Spencer, yeah.
Yeah, and so it's basically a chance to be like, hey, you ready for 2 days of insanity? Because I'm not. And then you go about your week.
So I mean, hearing that, like, to me, that sounds not dissimilar to the way that E3 kind of always unfolded, albeit, with maybe a less ridiculous show floor. And so, like, there was an interesting question Mike asked earlier, which was of E3, which was, what are we doing here? And I guess, like, I want to apply that same question to Summer Game Fest, because it sounds like it's just the same thing, but, a little smaller.
That's what I'm hoping to drill down into today. Like, I would love to hear, when we come to our closing thoughts, but I want to hear all of your feels, like, are we just making the same mistakes that E3 was before? Is it feckin' worth it for a game to be involved in this? Like,
I would say, at least, we can go about this step by step, but I would say this is far more a chill version compared to E3 in the past, because, like, I remember one year the pre-party for E3 was hosted by Twitch, and it was just this grand extravaganza, and it was more or less, hey, check out what everybody's doing. It really wasn't a get-together. It was more of a hype for the things to come.
Okay.
Summer Game Fest feels more like a, look, that we all know what we're here for. We all know what we're doing. Let's just have a little bit of a good time while we work. But that's just my viewpoint.
So I will say two things. One, for your original question, what happens while since the events are coming back to back to back for everyone at home, what's happening is usually people are splitting up the events. So like if you do, like if PlayStation and Xbox are back to back, and let's say I attended PlayStation, the rest of my team would be writing out PlayStation, and then usually after PlayStation I'd go back to the hotel and I'd be writing up Xbox after somebody else would be attending, Xbox in person. right now the only benefit for Summer Games Fest is again that hey, we know we can get everybody in the media and influencers in a single location for like a week to just like, we have you captive, we can show you all of our stuff.
Right.
And the benefit of Game Fest over E3 is not paying for E3 show floor space. That's
right. It. But even then, I think that like for a lot of the bigger companies, like paying for E3 show floor space costs some money, but that wasn't even probably the bulk of the cost. The bulk of the costs were for making demos, for flying a bunch of people out, for getting hotels, for taking care of all of those other logistical things that we don't really see. And so like that's kind of already out of the mix. Like they're not really, Final Fantasy 16 aside, like there were not many major demos that come out of this.
Indeed.
And then based on like the hands-on impressions people are posting, there weren't that many major companies showing their games in a playable state. So kind of what we saw in their presentations is more or less what we got, meaning they didn't need to like take time out of their development schedules to make demos and all of that. And so then in the end, all we get is this like neutered version of E3 with less of the glitz and glamour. But then all the companies are still, due to like proximity in terms of both being in LA and also having all of their different presentations happen within the same week, still competing with each other. So they don't get the benefit of having things more spread out. And as a result of that, they don't show their biggest games at any of these different presentations. Not like their biggest announcements that they're probably still keeping under wraps, because they can save that for a different time. And so like it really does feel kind of silly to still be doing this, because it feels like we're getting the worst elements of E3 and the worst elements of these presentations, and like no demos, nothing, no reason for the press to actually be out there. And then we're just like, okay, so again, it just goes back to this idea of tradition. Like we've always done this, so we have to do this for some reason. But I cannot, for the life of me, pinpoint the reason anymore.
And as a side note, let's not forget, this ain't over. We just had today a second Xbox presentation to follow up from the first one because they didn't want to make it a 3-hour event. We had Capcom and Ubisoft yesterday. There's still a Nintendo Direct that they haven't announced that we know for a fact we're probably getting next week. Square Enix hasn't...
according to the official schedule, Annapurna's doing something on the 29th. And this is just going by the official branded Summer Games Fest, which didn't include the accessibility showcase and a few others.
And a lot of these...
we also have we also have another Square Enix presentation that's going to happen sometime this month.
Right, and a lot of these didn't have to happen. So like Nathan brought up, Final Fantasy 16, a lot of sites actually already saw 16 like a lengthy demo like 2 or 3 weeks ago. Like Square just said, hey, come go see
please continue.
Like
I just need to check on the dog.
section.
I'm so sorry, friends. I know. Invite you all onto my show like a professional. I'll be back in just a sec. Please continue.
Yeah, it's all good.
We get it. The puppy is more important.
No, he's got a... we'll need to pull a Hassan and just have the puppy in the background of his stream at all times.
I honestly believe that if he held the puppy, we'd have more viewers.
Oh, absolutely. No, without a doubt. This is the internet. Right. But no, like even with the Final Fantasy thing, right? If we really want to go into the way that like presentations for games are just breaking down over time as a result of the internet, given that the demo was definitely already ready many weeks ago to show the press, there wasn't even really a good reason to do that press show. They could have just released the demo to the public and had press and everyone else play it. They didn't need to fly people out. They didn't need to like, low-key wine and dine them or any of that. Because that element of like the game's press as an entity is becoming less and less relevant because influencers fill that kind of access space. So you don't need to show the press this stuff before you release it. It just all doesn't really make any sense. It's all just going on what we used to do.
Yeah, and I mean they're still even doing it like I said, they did the press event like 2 or 3 weeks ago. Then they did the one actually at Summer Games Fest where they had like Alex Malaka and a bunch of other people like talking to the developers, and then they called it like a launch stream, a launch event or whatever.
Right, because the game is also coming out in like a week. Like, we
Right.
don't need any of this preview stuff for it anymore.
Yeah.
It's going to be out in a
The
week.
Final Fantasy 16 stuff was just by itself, right? It was only that game.
Yes.
So we did not get to see Final Fantasy 16 at Summer Game Fest. They previewed a brand new one called Foam Stars, which is on the way, which is kind of a weird Splatoon-esque game with foam, which is interesting. And then they showed us the SpongeBob DLC that's coming for Power Wash Simulator. They showed us the new Final Fantasy VII mobile title that's basically the original game with simplified mechanics. So we didn't even get Final Fantasy 16 at the event.
And so, like, I don't know if this was at old E3s. This would basically be like a warehouse or a bunch of hotel rooms or whatever, a hotel space with like stations for all 4 of those games that Gavin just mentioned, and then they're like, "We got you in here for 4 hours. Play the games at your leisure." We also probably sometimes have interviews. Your interview will be scheduled for here. Do whatever you want for these 4 hours. Hopefully you will play these games since we have you captive.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much what those events look like.
So,
But it is kind of interesting, at least from having this perspective, the idea that they had an invite-only event that was specific to one game, and then they showed everything else off to the general press in a totally
Over
separate
on the
event.
side. And some of these pressers didn't even need to happen. Like the Capcom presser was yesterday. That didn't need to happen.
Yeah, that one was.
Okay.
There was
There's
nothing there.
Are you
Like,
ready for Exo Primal, which is coming out also in like what, a month? Less than that?
Hey, they gave us the Ace trilogy.
Right, like, and like when I finished
the best trailer
watching
they put
the
out
stream,
was one
I
that
was
told
just
us
like-
it was coming late. So
right, I was just like, why? Like, just put these on YouTube. Like, put the like 3 or 4 trailers for these games on YouTube. You didn't need like a full hour-long showcase
yeah, this is actually something I wanted
for nothing.
to drill into, because like as much fun as the Devolver Digital stuff is, and I understand they have a reputation, like they had nothing to announce. They showed 4 games, which were all games.
Excuse me. They announced the game of the show, which is Baby Steps, the new Benefati game.
You know what? I will shush my whore mouth. You are correct.
Yeah.
Baby Steps is going to be brilliant. Like no irony.
But you
yeah.
you could have put that by itself. Like, you didn't
you
need
could've.
the whole AI.
Oh yeah, no, they could have announced it whenever they wanted to. I will say, if nothing else, Devolver uses these events well, because Devolver lampoons them at least and does something like this year's version of their weird, wacky show is probably their best one in terms of like, you know, both participating in Summer Games Fest and also saying, why are we here? What are we doing? Like,
Yeah.
let's make fun of the thing that we're a part of, and still like deliver some useful information, but also, you know, make it entertaining.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think that like, you know, the only reason any of these companies are doing this is because they have to assert that they are like still major players in this era of everything shifting and changing and companies getting bought, and like all of these other things. Like the reason why companies in a moment like this would still cling to tradition is to say like, hey, we're still around. We're still, you know, some of the biggest kids on the block, even while, you know, like mergers and acquisitions are happening and like Activision Blizzard is getting bought and people are talking about the idea of Ubisoft being purchased or Square Enix or companies of this size. So like, no, it's actually just like it's always been, where we still matter. Look at us. You know, it's the same reason. Yeah.
The reason why I wanted to touch on that one, because the PC gaming show was very much a relic of the past. Now, again, no hate to Day9 or Frankie. You know, they also did the AI joke, but the structure and format was the same thing that they used to do when there was a physical stage show as well. Like, that thing was a marathon slog. That could have been condensed down into an hour tops with still the same amount of info.
I will say on that sometimes with the Nintendo Direct, if you're covering it, it moves too fast.
Yeah.
And so having the bits in between that I don't have to pay attention to, as a person covering that, is helpful. Like the bits where they are just talking, anyone who is actually writing up that thing are writing anything about that is writing whatever they just saw.
Right.
Yeah.
But
I will
as a
fully
person
admit
that's
to being...
not,
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
as a person that wasn't at it and didn't need to cover it, which means probably most of the audience, like all of that is useless. Like
Yep,
I just
completely.
And Alnus in chat as well was kind of agreeing, and I hadn't taken that into consideration. But in terms of the strangeness, the weirdness, and I guess, touching on what you were saying, Nathan. All right, let's do it. Let's talk about the OTK Games Expo.
OTK, it's time for your rant.
It's
Okay.
time. Let's crack some knuckles. Okay.
Yeah, I'm interested in this too because I feel like I have some thoughts on them generally, so that'll probably dovetail well.
Also, I apologize for basically using your tweet last week to drunkenly rant about it at 2 a.m.
I view my tweets broadly as news resources, so whenever people say based on them is totally fine.
Yeah. So, the OTK caught everybody off guard because they aren't they aren't a group that has been directly active in games media. They are all influencers as part of a conglomerate or a blob or something. But
they're an organization.
An organization, thank you.
Yep.
But they haven't been directly involved in games press, game media. So
this is the second year they've done this.
This is the second
they did
year?
Yep.
God.
Yeah, this is the second time, which also made the kind of that both years they had this they did not feel like they were at home doing it. If you watch their presentation, their banter between kind of showings and games and stuff is a little bit stilted and awkward. And it was just sort of you did not get the sense that they're hosts. And you watch a good host do their job and it seems effortless. You're just wow, anyone could do that job. But it turns out, no, you can't. It's really hard.
Yep.
And that's, but anyway.
This year was, the awkwardness was exceptional. The structure of it was so bizarre again. So things like the couch seat setup that they had for their main hosts, where for 80% of the time, 3 of the 5 people on stage were just sat motionless. They had a strange second desk, a sports coverage desk, which for as much as I could see was only to talk about the merch they were selling and FPS titles. This is where I kind of condensed the rant of it, is that one of the most powerful tools that I've seen throughout Summer Games Fest was the Steam integration stuff, the Steam crossover. That if you go into Steam, you can click on any of the presentations and it will show you a full list of all of them, and you can just wishlist them and look them up. It's the most cohesive way to see what got announced, at least from a PC gaming perspective. They were the only
we started doing this before.
Is. But if you
we started doing that before, but yeah.
Oh, yes. But my point was more that OTK were the only people that fecked up their Steam page. So every other one, PC Gaming, Future, even Wholesome Direct, were on point. OTK didn't. And at that same event, they announced they were going to be a publisher. And you would think the publishers would be able to get their fucking Steam pages together.
I mean, notably, they actually just posted a lot of job listings, I think, today for their publishing arm. And some of those are fairly crucial roles for a thing like that. They're hiring right now for their PR and marketing people who probably would have handled that if they had been working at the company at the time.
Yes.
So I mean, I think that the thing about OTK is that they clearly have big ambitions. Yes. And not unjustifiably so, given that they are owned by some of the biggest streamers on all of Twitch. And so they've got the money to shoot for the stars. And so at this point, and this is what I tweeted about last week, they are now, in addition to a content creator organization that does all sorts of events together and produces events and things like that, they're now also dabbling in actual events during things like Summer Games Fest in the form of their OTK Expo. They have a PC building company called Starforge, where people can buy PCs from them. They have their game publishing arm, which they just announced. And then they also have a talent management firm called Mythic, which very quietly kind of migrated over a lot of major contracts in the live streaming space. So they manage some big names.
Yeah.
basically they want to do like everything, and they're still scaling up for it. And like they're also just, you know, again, when you talk about like content creators who would make good hosts, I've never looked at their particular stable and thought these are the people.
No.
Like there are some content creators who would be great fits for it, and in fact are, and like, you know, do double duty. They stream and they also host. Look at somebody like Golden Boy, who's like an esports commentator who also streams. He's good at both things. He's just, you know,
I mean,
he's got that vibe and that personality. Whereas like the OTK people are like dyed in the wool, like, you know, goblin mode gamers. They like to hang out, play video games, and that is their main thing. And it's like you put them on a stage and they're fish out of water, naturally.
Yeah.
But again, I think that OTK's bigger problem is that, like, I mean, I appreciate that they want to do all these things, that they're branching out and trying to, you know, really like do something different in the space. But, you know, it might be too much too fast.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that, like, I'm not against more publishers in the space. If they succeed, they have the potential to bring more games to more people at a time when money is really short on the ground. Like, if they succeed at being a publishing wing, that's good. And it would be lovely to see them thusly. It's just, yeah, their Goblin mode style doesn't lead well to promotional stuff. Sorry, this is a slight tangent, but I just wanted to throw it in. That
it's a good tangent to have, because I've had this discussion at esports events. There are so many players that are introvert and don't talk to anybody beyond the people who are closest to them and their teammates when they have to. They are not PR trained, they're not media trained, they haven't been given any kind of like course in how to answer questions or speak to people or just exude a personality, which is somewhere inside of them, even if it's minor. And now in a situation like this, I think they really learned the hard way that if this is what they intend to do moving forward, if they intend to be the face of the company, they gotta train themselves and become more able to talk with people and have a personality beyond I'm a gamer.
And this was part of my problem when Donkey announced his thing. In that
the QI noise sounds. I'm like, I have opinions.
the halo effect idea of I'm good at this, so I should be good at this, doesn't work. Now, if you're going to knuckle down and really, instead of just because I'm good at A, I'm also going to be good at B, and instead going, because I'm good at A, I've made a ton of money, and I would like to put those resources towards a thing that will be built to do B correctly. Those are two different things.
Yeah. So
like
this is
deciding because you're good at football, you can also do baseball, as opposed to because you're good at football, using that money to build up like a great baseball organization or something like that. Like those are two different things.
Yeah.
And so my thing with Donkey and with OTK is like, I don't necessarily care that you're doing it. More power to you, but are you doing it correctly? Like something like Giant Bomb.
Well, I
want to jump
back to the Donkey point, because I know it's a very hyperbole way of saying it, but like Donkey's big crime was making a very, very arrogant statement video when announcing Big Mode. However, what we're actually seeing is that the first title that they've signed is actually a very smart one. It's Animal Well. It's low risk, low cost, but it looks like it's going to be one of those like easy to digest indie bangers. And so the disproportionate representation between Donkey as a character and what Big Mode is doing, like the representation of arrogance is grating. With OTK, it's ignorance.
Yeah, and that's why like again, I don't really care that you're going to do it. Just make sure that you know that you're using the resources in a proper way. And the fact that they've started doing this without having the jobs that Nathan was talking about that they've just put up, like you need to have those ahead of time.
I mean,
before you start doing it.
I mean, here's why they did what they did, if I had to guess. It's that like their OTK Expo stream is a moment when they know they're going to have a lot of the industry or a lot of industries eyes on them because it's Summer Games Fest, because people are jumping between all these different streams to hear about different announcements and things like that. Meaning they're not just going to have the audiences that they get from their normal, like, you know, Asmongold stream or Mizkif stream or S-Fan stream or whatever. They're going to have actual game industry people watching them, developers, publishers, that sort of a thing. So they do this announcement there in order to essentially put out a call for hires. Like this was calculated. This was saying like
this was
we
their
announce our thing
version
here, and then we get attention, so then we can hire for these roles. Companies do this all the time.
Yeah.
And by the way, this isn't like an impossible feat. Like the example that I would cite as being like almost perfect to the T was when Game Grumps released Dream Daddy. Like you had an established brand of people who helped put together a video game. It was very basic. They did the right moves with the PR. They did the right moves with getting it to reviewers in time. They did live streams to promote the game where they were playing it and had other content creators playing it. Like they knew exactly what to do to get that game out. So it's not like this is an impossible task.
No.
It's just like putting other things in front of the more important things, and then it exposes you for like not knowing exactly what you're doing ahead of time.
Yeah. The other issue is that the other issue is that just, you know, when you're working with content creators, especially Twitch streamers who are, you know, big into kind of playing games on their own schedules and whatnot, there's the matter of interest. And so OTK is like an organization. They have a lot of people working behind the scenes who you don't see, some of whom are really intelligent and really experienced in this space. But like, if you looked again at their presentation, I think one of the issues that you saw, at least for some of the streamers involved, was just disinterest.
Yes.
Like if you looked at Mizkif, you know, chat saw this too. I was looking at their chat and people were like, he's just phoning it in. Like he said the same thing about the last game. Like just didn't really want to be there. And it's like, that's, I think, the bigger issue. But again, if they hire the right people, and if the people who are already in charge of kind of the game publishing arm are, you know, doing this with an eye toward drawing on experience that others have and like bringing in people who know what they're doing, then yeah, of course they can do it. Like, you know, the main thing that they need, which I think they already have given their status, is resources, and they got money.
Resources can be used for the right. The thing that Nathan was talking about before, a lot of game publishers do. If you've ever wondered why a game gets a random CG trailer with a logo that has nothing to it 5 years before the game comes out, that's what that is for. They are not selling it to you. They are selling it to the rest of the industry, saying, please come make this game with us.
That's the reason why people hit up Platige and stuff like that. It's like, look, just give us something that's vaguely thematic with a big old logo on. I've obviously never been involved in any of those assets, but if I had, it absolutely was to, like, one, like, stamp a flag in the ground, and two, show the rest of the industry that team is actually, like, established and with funds. It's an internal PR move, even though it's shown to punters. But
Happy
obviously,
5th birthday to the Elder Scrolls 6 announcement.
Did you see the news that they have basically everybody in QA at Bethesda working on that until release?
On Starfield?
Yeah, no wonder we haven't seen anything for Elder Scrolls. There's no one working on it.
Yeah, oh, definitely not. No, I mean, it's really funny because, like, you know, there have been headlines today of Todd Howard saying, like, you know, that might be my swan song and then I'm out. And it's like, well, yeah, of course, because that game's not going to come out until 2030. And, like, what, Todd Howard is already in his 50s? He'll be, like, 60 by then. Of course he's going to retire.
Old man Howard tottering out on stage. I'm here to
can
tell
you just
about
imagine
Elder
doing
Scrolls.
that? Like James Cameron, they just pushed the Avatar 5 back to like 2031. I'm just like measuring that in my mind. I'm just like, can you imagine being trapped? Like, even if it's the thing that you loved, you've worked your whole life to get here. Just imagine being trapped on that one thing for another.
It's a bit Futurama.
I imagine that's what Pat Rothfuss feels like every day. Like, everybody's just asking him for that third book, and he can never make anybody happy with anything else he's doing. They just want to see that third book.
Every time I see him at PAX, I want to be like, "Oi, Rothfuss, when's a book?" He's a lovely person.
I will never ask him that. I just ask him how he's doing and how things are going and have a conversation, and that book never comes up.
But it just, in the back of my mind, that's the intrusive thought. I just want to say, when's the book coming out? Damn it.
So Todd Howard will be the Elder Scroll. Yeah, that's true.
Okay, so jumping back. So, Gav, give us just a quick overview. What did the actual physical event of Games Fest look like? Just tiny E3? Did it look like, somebody's loft with some pot plants?
It is not an E3. And there are photos of this all over the internet if you want to go look it up. I don't know if the location is a secret or not, but essentially what they do is they take over a street market in Los Angeles.
Okay.
And there's a primary building where a lot of the developers are at. They basically set up Samsung monitors with couches and give you just this like cozy little area where you can sit down and play the game with a developer and have a conversation as you're playing it. Or in some cases, and I'm not going to name any names just in case I don't want it to come off like insulting. Okay. There's some where you just show up to the appointment. There's nobody there. It's just you have an open monitor with the game set up for you to have for a half hour to an hour, however long you're there. And then throughout, like the first year that they did this, there were like a couple of things outside that area. This year, they fully took over the street that was attached to the market. So as you went down the alleyway, there was like EA had a happy hour area. And then further down the road, they had an area dedicated to Mortal Kombat. And then further down the area, like Bandai Namco had its own setup. Niantic had its own setup. So to a degree, it feels like E3, but it's clearly not. We're in an outdoor setting. We're in completely, like, we're not standing next to a 30-foot model of Sonic the Hedgehog. We're not, like, being blasted with audio in every goddamn direction like you're in a sensory tank. You're basically just, you're roaming around with a lot of people that you know, because it is strictly content creators and games media / journalists, along with whatever developers and PR folk are in the area.
And there were like another 2 or 3. So I got fairly deep into going, and then my car decided that it needed like almost $3,000 of a repair. So I canceled my hotel and my flight.
I'm sorry, man.
But yeah, so they had the center hub, and then like 2 or 3 other venues sort of related. That you sort of talked with those outside partners for appointments and other things.
Yes. They give you a free lunch ticket every day, which they had options for food trucks as well as a pizza place, which was the most popular and had a line that was like 45 minutes long.
Less nice. Well, that does feel a little bit more like E3.
You got your own. It wasn't quite. It's somewhere between medium and personal pan pizza. You got a full pizza to yourself with a soda, which was very nice.
Every pizza is a personal pizza if you believe in yourself.
Yes, it is. And basically, you were given 8 hours to do whatever appointments you had set up, or go visit people, or talk to them, or however. I know people that like just showed up. They had nothing booked. And they walked around and they talked and said, hey, do you have a free moment to chat? Do you have free time for me to play? Has someone missed their spot? Can I jump in here? And they just roamed up and down the street the 2 days. And then there are other people like me who basically had almost everything booked out every half hour. And I saw almost everything that was there. Not quite. Like the first year, I was able to see everything. With 1 or 2 exceptions, because one was down and the other, they were only there for the 1 day and they left.
Okay.
This year it was basically like my schedule was packed. I saw practically everything, and I have thoughts about what next year is probably going to look like because of that. But yeah, that's basically the way it goes. It's like E3 without the fans, in a more chill environment that is clearly catered toward making sure that we have time to see demos and time to talk to people without the noise. We'll just label it as noise.
Yeah, I don't know, again, if I got the 1,000-yard stare, but as someone who did work under the waggling finger of Uncle Sonic, it is burnt into my mind because of when I'd have to do host for the press presentation was exactly the same time as the Just Dance dancers would start doing Psy's Gentleman's routine, and they'd be in my eye line, because I was in like a sunken coliseum, because we're doing Rome, and they're right there, they'd start doing their routine, and it's burnt into my
I
mind.
I literally could not imagine manning a booth at E3 because the screens, whatever thing you're seeing is probably like on like a 10-minute loop or something
Yeah.
oh my god, like I could not imagine.
The synchronicity of it's horrifying.
It reminds me way back in the day, I used to work at an arcade in a place called Hollywood Connection, and the arcade would advertise, it had like TV monitors everywhere promoting the films that were in the theater next door, and it was on a 15-minute loop. So picture every 15 minutes you're bombarded with a 2-minute trailer for the South Park movie, right? Like after a while, you can quote the thing, and then after a little more, you really just want to take a gun and shoot out every single monitor in the place and burn the place down because it just doesn't stop. Yeah. And I imagine that's the same kind of PTSD that a lot of people that were booth managers or PR reps or back in the day booth babes had to put up with, especially like having to deal with the people in general who, you know, a lot of them were not the greatest of folk.
It took a long time and a lot of drinking to burn out the Skylanders promotional video because it would immediately start playing as soon as I was on my lunch break, and it would loop because Activision would do their trailers on their huge stand with flamethrowers in blocks, not on a long circuit. So there'd be the Skylanders block, then the Call of Duty block, and what have you.
Oh yeah. There was one year at E3 they had a Fortnite setup that was like all neon signs and everything, and giant monitors blaring out about the new update that was on the way. This is long before they like blew up the island the first time, and they're just promoting the new season of content that's coming. And every 10 minutes I'm trying to do a demo, and you would hear that across the South Hall.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was yelling at the dogs.
Yeah. E3 was always I remember the Ubisoft used to have their demos one year like right behind the booth in like the tightest, smallest area with everyone crammed in, hot to just play the demos. They also had a thing off site, but like the one on the E3 show floor was like behind the booth and everything, and it was so crowded. So moving away from that is good, but also, again, like it's in June, which is not necessarily aligned to every other game release. Like if your game is coming out in September, June is great. If your game is coming out in like November, December, or earlier in the year, like the way game development works, sometimes you're so far away from delivering anything that is playable and reflects what your game actually is.
Well,
absolutely.
And again, anytime that you're doing this, showing one of these shows, if you're going to have a demo, then you have to make that demo discrete and separately from the main game, which takes time and energy from the development of the main game.
Yep.
And so that's something that you've also got to block out in your development schedule and all of that.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
And the games don't reflect like...
I was going to add that Kimball, who's one of our regulars, is a producer. And every time we talk about this, they get their Vietnam flashback because it's like every time, every team says, everything we make in this press demo is going to be in the main game. So it's fine, right? Everything we do for our E3 demo, it's just going to come back. No. It might as well be a whole ass another game for like 4 months.
Yeah. Well, because you've got to like... The thing that a lot of people don't recognize about game development is that like the way that assets look at the end when the game is released is not how the game looks through a lot of development. So you've got to polish everything to the point that it would be polished for release for a slice of the game, which is not the way games are usually made.
And my point on this one, my biggest example is I forget which year it was, Spider-Man PS4.
Yes.
Looked great, but at the same time they were showing Spider-Man, they were showing on a theater demo Ghost of Tsushima, and Ghost of Tsushima looked terrible. Like, I remember seeing that video, the hands-off demo, and I was like, damn, I'm surprised that Sucker Punch is putting out something that looks not great. And then,
I believe
it
was...
came together like really well. Like the game, I love Ghost of Tsushima, but seeing that first demo and then subsequent demos, like it gives you a feeling of how, especially for these really large games, but even the smaller like indie games or mid-range games, how quickly they can come together, like months before launch.
I believe you're talking about the 2017 Sony presentation in the theater, where they showed both of those off at the same thing and flashbanged the crowd at the event, I might add, which sucked.
I forgot about that.
They had a new Call of Duty game, and those of us who were live in the theater got flashbanged right from the stage. It was like, oh, you fucker.
Yeah, and they showed it on the presentation. It looked fine, but they showed it behind at the PlayStation booth as well, like a theater presentation, and it just didn't look good. Like it looked stilted, it looked janky. It just did not look good at all.
Yeah.
But the final game came together great.
Well, I mean, you talk about coming together as though it is this, magical process. We know what it is. It's crunch. And in both cases where the game comes together at the 11th hour, suddenly, and in cases often where people are making a demo. Like if you want to look into, reports of crunch at various studios, those are the two main points. Like it's the final stretch, whenever that begins, whether the final stretch begins in the final 6 months or 3 months or year and a half or whenever, because game making is often a very fraught process. And then it's that, or like demos require a lot of crunch generally because it's a hard date when something's got to be ready. And, at all costs, basically, is the way that a lot of companies approach it, which is terrible.
Yes.
Yeah.
We run into a lot of games that they look like one thing at the start and they turn out totally different. The best example I have is 2019. Warner Brothers showed all of media a behind closed doors trailer for Lego Star Wars, the Skywalker saga.
Okay.
And they were like, and this was before the third film in the trilogy, the new trilogy, had come out, and they were like, we're going to have content from all 9 movies in this game. They were showing us like what the game looked like and everything. And then pandemic happened, got delayed. If you go back and find that trailer from 2019 and you look at the trailer for the launch trailer for 2022, it is 2 separate games. It looks like Lego, it plays like Lego, it has all the features from Lego Star Wars. You have 2 different experiences in front of you because of 3 years difference.
Yeah. So I wanted to bring it back. I do understand that anytime we bring up E3 is that we're all basically sharing trauma. Tell me I'm wrong. But
it's not trauma, it's just, we pick and choose what memories we choose to keep with us.
yeah, let's call it that.
It's a little trauma because it is literally like a marathon of like a week. Like you are running around, you eat like dog shit, you sleep like dog shit, and you are just playing games and trying to funnel the thing that you're playing into whatever your form of content is.
Right.
Whether you're writing a profile, an interview, or doing a video, or like whatever you're doing. Like you're trying to take like 20 different things and file them into 20 different of whatever you do.
Yeah. And for what reason? Hard to say, especially given that, like, I'm currently not full-time employed, but talking to some of my friends at some of the major video game sites, and the worst thing is, like, traffic this year for all this stuff wasn't not even very good. Like,
oh, really?
The interest levels are not what they used to be, in part because a lot of the announcements weren't that earth-shaking. They were just kind of, here's that game y'all knew about.
Yep. And there's like some that have offered some new things, but like a lot of the stuff, like the pandemic fucked up development. It just did, straight up. And some studios have taken a while to recover. Like Ubisoft has just been in a drought, and they had some interesting stuff, but like half of it was still stuff we already knew about. We're just getting a further look at it. Like I said, Capcom's presentation was just stuff we already knew about. Like,
Yeah.
we didn't need that at all. So yeah, there's not a lot of new stuff. It's more like, hey, the thing that we told you about before, it is coming.
Yeah.
Like even that Xbox, like here's Forza Motorsport. We already knew about that. Fable, we got a look.
Well, okay. So I tell you what. Let's just
We got a pretty decent trailer for it, but not a lot of substance.
let's shake it up a little. Let's just do a quick round. One hot, one not, because like my hot was genuinely the Fable trailer, because like it's a very, very difficult thing to move into, and I think it was one of the better examples of using like acting talent in a trailer. It was very aware of what it was, and it was the kind of thing that people who spend a lot of time on that franchise could get excited behind. Like, as a trailer, its job is to do the thing. I think it did the thing good, from chicken kicking to what's his face from the IT crowd being amazing. My not, and this is a little bit tongue-in-cheek, but the poor group that had to do the Skull and Bones like metal shanty being the unintentionally funniest shit I have seen in ages. So I guess we'll start with Mike, because we've got like the little setup. Give me a hot and give me a not.
I'm a big Star Wars guy, so I'll say Star Wars Outlaws, and I actually like Ubisoft games, so that not is probably Pragmata, because we got another trailer and I still do not know what the game is. And let me just
Pragmata of them.
Hey! Dun, 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 dun.
And let me just say, if you are putting on if you are not like doing it, if you're doing an original thing, a CG trailer does not help me. I need to see what your game is. If it's entirely original, like there was one at the Future Game Show or the PC Game Show called Bookwalker, and the trailer was cool, but like that's an original project. I have no idea what your game looks like.
That one's actually coming out. So, okay, so Nathan, give me a hot, give me a not.
Let's see. So I mean, my main hot is Baby Steps. Like I said earlier, because again, it just seems like it is a really good mixture of what Ben Foddy and company are good at, which is ridiculous physics. And then also they have the composer from Ape Out on it too. I don't know if any of y'all have played Ape Out, but that game is incredible.
Its whole reactive jazz system is phenomenal.
Yeah. And they're using, once again, they're going to have a dynamic soundtrack for this one too. So expanded version of that idea over only for like a big open world kind of setting. And like just watching the trailer and seeing some of the landscapes you will have to traverse as somebody who functionally can barely walk, it looks like a really good time. I was taking notes earlier for this because I don't have a job right now, so I could just over prepare for everything that I am going to do during my day. And let's see, the thing that I said for it was here, I gotta find my exact phrasing. Oh yeah, what Death Stranding could have been if Kojima was even remotely on Ben Foddy's level.
That's the back of the box quote.
So yeah, that game looks really good. As for a not, honestly, like I watched the entire Starfield showcase today, and it just, I don't know, it's not really doing much for me. The only thing that stood out to me about it was that one of the developers working on the game said that she had made a cargo hold specifically for holding sandwiches that she pilfered from other people's spaces and ships. And I was like, that's funny. I like that idea. But otherwise, like they're doing, the like huge universe, 1,000 planets, many of them procedurally generated thing. And like, meanwhile, I've been playing Zelda like in all of my spare time. And that game just so fundamentally nails what I want exploration to be in games.
Yeah.
Which is, make it dense, make it interesting. And instead of saying, okay, we're going to add tons of like procedurally generated nonsense content where it's just like content for content's sake.
Yeah.
If you want to give every player a unique experience, give everyone an ability that makes their experience unique. In Zelda's case, it's building and the way that you can construct things and solve puzzles however you want. And so like everyone has the same world to explore and it's all handcrafted and incredible. But they're all going to have a different experience of that world because of this unique mechanic. Meanwhile, Starfield is saying, okay, it's going to be unique because, everybody's experience of this one planet will be a little different, but it's going to be this big open barren space with occasional bits of handcrafted content sprinkled throughout, and it's just like, I don't know. It just makes me think of like the grim AI-driven future we probably have in store for us when it comes to games. Of like, yeah, it's a lot of content. Go nuts.
Hey, don't worry. The punk indie underground will keep putting out weird stuff that's handmade. So Gavin, give me a nut. Hoop shot.
Man, I feel like I'm on the opposite end of this entire spectrum. Like, it's a close second. Starfield was on there because I'm a Trekkie, and that's about as close to like space exploration, do whatever I want kind of game that I'm gonna get. But my favorite was Mortal Kombat 1. I actually got to play it. That's the only reason it topped it, was because I got to try out the demo. And it is great. And yeah, I knew it was coming. I knew it was coming 4 years ago. Like, I knew the game would, like, I thought they were going to do Injustice 2 by now. Or Injustice 3, I should say. But obviously that didn't happen, so they poured all their stuff into this, and it's clear that whatever they had planned for that game has been put into this one with an entirely new story. And the mechanic of having, like, this partner from one of the first 3 games by your side is really interesting to play. It kind of changes up the way that you have to think about fighting other people or fighting the game itself. As you have, basically you're choosing a combination, like it's Tekken Tag, of 2 fighters to put together to fight against 2 other fighters. But I enjoyed that one a lot. I don't care. It's a fighting game. It's dumb fun. It already had me sold. For not, I'm sure I'm going to get grief from somebody about this. I don't find the Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth game all that interesting.
And I called you a friend.
Yeah. I look, I love the Yakuza series a lot, but there's a part of me that really would prefer to move on to other things. Like, I don't know. I think if you're going to have a series like that where you constantly introduce new characters and build this world out the way that they have been, revisiting old ones just feels like you're treading over old territory. And so, yeah, the trailer was cool and funny, but at the same time, I'm really not interested. I could give a shit less about whatever he's got planned in America, apparently. I'd rather see a new character.
I was
exhausted
by the idea of... Like, don't get me wrong. Like a Dragon... was absolutely fascinating. I loved it. But again,
it was great.
The idea of doing it again made me feel very tired, friends. Like, it made me want to have a little nap.
It was one of the best shock trailers from the Xbox thing, just, in what they showed. And they got people talking about, oh, hey, look at that character in a brand new situation.
They showed it all, in a manner of speaking.
Hey!
Yeah, but story... But whatever story they got planned, I could give a shit less. I want something new.
I mean, wait, what are y'all's like Yakuza series body counts? Like, how many of the games have you played?
Okay, see,
Oof.
I got lucky.
I have done all except 5.
I think I've done all except for, weirdly, 0.
Oh, you've got to play 0. It's so good.
Oh, no, I know. It's just...
I say this being as it's the only one I finished, but...
and I don't know if it counts, but the Fist of the North Star Yakuza game...
Yeah.
I don't know if that if that counts as part of it, but it has that vibe.
Yeah. I mean, I think Ichiban needs another outing or 2.
If we're not counting...
Kiryu got like 100 of them. Ichiban at least deserves a second one.
But I
if we're not counting
the
the spin-offs and the re-releases, I've done everything except Complete 4. So,
but my flatmate back in the day could read Japanese, so he'd get the copies that I'd get from Sega, and he'd be able to play and explain them. So, that's why I don't want to put my hand up and say that I'm like the Yakuza guy, but it was really interesting that I was raving about. So the last one they did a remake of the Boshin one. Ishin, thank you. Been raving about that one for years, and they were like, "Bet, we'll put it in, doing it." So let's get. Oh, thank you.
Ichiban.
Thank you, Orion. Very quickly, just jumping back into chat. So Sam was just saying that their hot was also Star Wars. Their not was the soulless smile on Jeff's face every time he tried describing a game that looked like a stinker. To which I gotta add, again, my big hot was watching Jeff get so thoroughly upstaged by Nick Cage that I swear, by the old gods and the new, he got about half a foot shorter.
He did.
I will say on the stinker comment, there is nothing more awkward than being in a demo that you're going to have to be in for like 30 minutes and you have pegged within the first 5 that you do not like this game at all.
It's not.
Because a lot of the times what's happening, 1, you're playing it, 2, you're at the appointment, so you probably have to keep playing it, but 3, probably someone named on the dev team is nearby and they are asking you what you think.
Yeah.
So
My personal
The upside of how it often happens, though, is that it's just somebody who's on comms. They're not even on the dev team, so they also barely give a shit. Like, you know.
I
Like,
try to be
very
honest
few
with a
teams have
sprinkle of
internal
sugar.
comms.
yeah, like I did Days Gone, which also at the time, like it came together fine, but at the time it wasn't great. And like the director was there while I was playing it and I was not vibing. And he was like, "So what do you think?" And I'm like, I'm sorry, man.
You're like, for being real, it feels like this demo has made days be gone from my life.
I had that experience this past weekend. And I try to be honest with a bit of sugar attached to it because, like, you don't want to be a dick. Like, it's easy for us to be dicks about everything because we can nitpick. It's our jobs. But I won't say the game, but there was one that very specifically had swimming mechanics in it that were just not working. Like, I understand I'm in a 3D environment that feels like I'm supposed to be, like, in full 360 control of where I'm going. I constantly was just having failure after failure of swimming underwater, and it shouldn't be that hard.
I've been on both sides of it, and it's always heartbreaking when you know, but you still have to show enthusiasm from the dev side, and it's so hard to not call a spade when you're in like a playable demo of. One thing I would like is for 2024 Summer Games Fest, no one is allowed to be excited to announce. That phrase is banned. Because you're clearly not excited. You look dead inside.
We're prepared to announce.
We have to announce.
Or just go full the other way. I'm devastated to announce. And then,
we're contractually obligated to announce.
I just like devastated because it sounds like you're going to go up at a gaming conference and say that someone has died.
We're literally giving Devolver ideas for 2024.
Heck yeah. Write it for them.
Yeah, as if they don't already have all of these on a giant whiteboard.
The return of Mia Struthers is sitting on 2027 somewhere.
That's what we're hoping for. As someone who's in...
We're eager to announce because we want to get this over with.
Yep.
Is there anything you wanted to know about the event, Wills? I don't know if Nathan attended with me.
I did not attend, no. I considered it for a couple weeks, and then I was like, there's no point. There's just not gonna be much there.
I guess, is there anything you guys are curious about from somebody that was physically at the event?
Yeah, well, and also to all of your lovely selves watching as well, if you have any questions, I figure we can start opening the pit up. Because whilst questions and stuff are coming in, I wanted to speak with the three of you all today and just, get your views and your feels. And then in a couple of weeks, I'm going to try and sit down with some devs who showed games there. And we can kind of take the two streams and work out, is Summer Games Fest worth, breaking your bones over to make a demo and be there, or to put out a trailer? Because, again, as Nathan was saying, those trailers aren't nothing. If it contains in-engine or, in-game, there's still a buttload of work that goes into that. Kathy wants to know how much of the applause was real at the Games Fest stream.
All of it. There's no... I went back and I watched it again to see if I could find myself in the crowd just for shits and giggles. It's actually, you're not hearing the full crowd on that show. And I don't know if that's the way it was mic'd up or the way that the theater was built or whatnot, but all the cheers and the applause that you hear are real. There was no canned anything in the crowd, because like if it was, trust me, we're the people that were in that audience, we would have hijacked that fucker immediately and just started booing things for fun.
That's great, because there was a dead silence when, after a series of cheers, and Jeff went, and we have the new announcement for Fortnite, and it was crickets. That was the funniest shit, watching that from the sidelines.
When he did that teaser, and it doesn't come off as well on the playback as it did in the theater, when he did that whole Final Fantasy 16 teaser with DoorDash, there were so many people who were pissed that, like, it got some giggles, but you could audibly hear people boo him for the obvious ad that he threw in the middle of the show.
Yeah. Well, also, the thing about any of this is, like, you know, nobody who is even a little bit savvy uses, like, canned or fake applause for these events. Instead, it's a matter of who they choose to invite, so that they know they have enthusiasts and influencers and things like that in the crowd who will cheer for almost everything.
Yeah.
Like, you know, because, you know, otherwise it's too obvious and they wouldn't get away with it and people would talk about it. And that would undercut the entire purpose of their event.
Yeah. Back
So,
in
yeah.
the
And
day,
these people...
Microsoft would always fill the pit with like either fans or like enthusiastic content creators and stuff like that.
Yep.
The journos would usually be the ones doming around the stage.
Because like at least myself, when I end up at those things, like any clapping I'm doing is the clapping of this part of this section of the presentation is done. Clap for the people that were just on stage as a courtesy. But like, I've never attended one of these things and been like, oh my God, that's the thing I love. I'm going to say something out loud because I'm there
They fill the audience with
in a journalistic perspective, at least.
So.
Yeah.
So I'm not trying to give any more than the clap for, hey, you were up on stage, you did your bit, and you are leaving now. A clap for that.
And also, let's give these guys credit where credit's due. They know how to put on a show. They know how to mic a crowd. Like, if they really wanted you to hear the audience, they could have had, like, 20 hanging mics from the rafters, making sure that they were pointed directionally at every area that they wanted to hear from. So it's not like they needed to can anything. If they really wanted to, they just put, like, 5 mics in front of the content creator section and just taken their reactions alone. And like forgot the rest of us beyond the fact that we were background noise.
Also from chat, still recall that one very enthusiastic guy going woo and yeah for everything Bethesda was showing during E3 that one year.
Yeah.
That person was great. That was incredible.
Do we know
Also,
who that was?
I should point out missed opportunity on Xbox's part. I love Xbox to death, but doing a pre-recorded live stream, I think, was a misstep in some ways, because I was at... They still held a crowd event. They still held their annual thing in the Novo.
Oh, I didn't know.
And I was in the press area up on the 5th floor, on the balcony or whatever, like where the VIP section was.
Yeah.
And it's like you could go back and forth between either going and like sitting in your regular seat and watching the stream with the crowd, or going into the press area and getting a snack and writing things up as you needed to. That crowd popped for everything. Every single announcement. There was no like dead silence. There was no boos. There was no what kind of feeling. Like every single game got a reaction. And the ones that you figured would get major reactions, like Fable, it sounded like I was at a wrestling event. So the idea of like having this pre-recorded hour where you completely took that element out of it, I don't see how they can go back to doing another live stream next year unless it's something that they suddenly decide is cost effective, because they basically killed whatever like public enthusiasm that would have been tied to anything. But that's just my opinion as someone who was physically there seeing it and being like, why is that not up on the monitor I'm watching?
Well, I think this is also like, this gets into the bigger issue of kind of, you know, us having this now E3 but not E3 kind of thing going on. Is like, because we're in the middle of the spectrum of it being a series of discrete kind of publisher created events without glitz and glamour, without audiences, and then the kind of E3 of yore where it was all about as much spectacle as possible. like we can end up with something like this where it's like it doesn't really accomplish either goal. And like, you know, I feel like if we're going to keep doing this thing, like cramming together all these announcements, like spectacle is the point. And so if we're dialing that part back, but then also like still having some of like the press interaction, people gathering sort of thing, like, you know, it just becomes this big kind of, you know, broadly pointless mass. Like, I don't know. I think dial it back up. Like if you're going to do all these big announcements together, make it over the top, make it ridiculous, have fun with it. Because otherwise it's just kind of like, eh.
Or alternatively, do the opposite and just speed run the announcements. Like show me all 6 games on a stream that I don't have to like attend, that I can just scrub through super quick.
Yeah, and then do that not in the middle of June all at once. Do it in months that are more empty. Like we're about to hit July and August where basically no games news happens.
Yeah, because everybody's preparing for PAX.
Right. Like, I mean, you have all these, or like early in the year, you have all these months where like, you know, most of the big releases have come out. There's time and space for people to talk about other things. Like there are ways to divvy this up so that everything gets the spotlight, and companies are getting more and more savvy about that and doing that little by little.
Yeah.
Then we still have this vestigial organ just sitting here in the middle of June. It's like, I don't know. It's just goofy to me.
I will say from dev side, there's always going to be a slew of announcements at this time of year because like for the big budget stuff, the cycle is still true. Like GDC is where you go and you get money. E3 is where you sign the dotted line and you announce. That's obviously an oversimplification, but that's always going to exist to an extent. And, you know, with this just being after, like, it's just after the fiscals have all been filed away and people have a better understanding of their year. Like, there'll always be something here, but I don't know. Well, okay, this actually leads nicely into what I wanted to ask you all before we descend completely into madness. How can this be better? Like, and from your professional perspectives, like, while having a thought of that, like, we got a deluge of announcements with very little consistency across the board. It was incredibly difficult to keep up with, even if you watched every live stream event and saw all the coverage. Like, if it is all going to be digital, this seemed like it was very cramped. It seemed like it was very fire hose. And a lot more so than, you know, previous E3 years. So, like, what could this do to be better? Yeah, I'm getting to the hard questions now.
Man, you kind of already got my answer. Just,
Less live streams.
Don't do it.
Just fucking don't.
No, I mean, I true, you know, cards on the table as if they weren't already. Like, I don't really see any purpose to this. It's not the E3 of yore. It's not accomplishing the spectacle, the mainstream eye drawing spectacle that used to. And it's also not a series of discrete events that kind of give the companies time and space to really show off things in a more concerted and direct way. It's just like, again, I think it's mainly companies doing it because it's what they've always done, and also because Jeff has a lot of pull. And even then, his own Game Awards event is better for this because it's not everybody, like, it's a lot of different announcements, but it's also not all these different companies trying to do their own things at the same time.
Yeah.
And so you get a little bit more focus. Like, this just doesn't really make any sense to do as a thing. And if I had to guess, I don't think it lasts that much longer. I think that companies will start to realize this has the same problem E3 did, and they will slowly back out, and we'll be back where E3 was.
Yeah, I'm probably in that same space in that, one, because of timing, like, a lot of these companies feel that they have to be here and in this time period and maybe in that space have something, just anything. And you don't. Like, if you don't have anything to show, wasting my time for 30 minutes to an hour is actually detrimental because it makes you look worse. Like, Capcom is having a banger year in terms of game releases.
That's a
like
good point.
they've been on a good run for a while, but they didn't need a showcase. Like, they just didn't. Like they didn't have anything to show. There wasn't anything new. Even the trailers for pre-announced stuff didn't really highlight anything particularly new and interesting. Like we spent probably a good 5 minutes on Ghost Trick, and I love Ghost Trick, but it's a port. I don't need 5 minutes to explain a port of Ghost Trick. So they would have been better off just not doing anything. And then when they have something to say, like when they want to show off Resident Evil 4 Separate Ways or Pragmata whenever it gets done, do a thing for that. Like, if your publisher, developer, or game is big enough, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And you can show it off whenever it is near ready and you are ready for that run-up. And if you're not, then your best bet is probably a show like PAX or something else where you're actually like on the show floor and average people can see your game right there and play your game right there and see you and talk to you, as opposed to like an E3 thing. So it's like, if you're a big AAA, you don't need it because you can do it whenever you want. Like Mortal Kombat 1, as soon as Ed Boon drops the thing, everyone will be there to cover it. Whatever.
Starfield's not going to have to fight for coverage.
Yeah. So like, it just doesn't. And even like for a while, we used to have these real hot spots of game releases, and maybe E3 helped for that, for like, again, like the September, maybe towards the holiday. But now we've also started realizing, hopefully, that you can spread releases out. Like, you don't have to drop everything before the holidays and hope to win. And in fact, you're probably better off not dropping your game like right after Zelda, or right, in the middle of Street Fighter 6. Like, when you see those big games that are going to take out all of the air in the room, you need to put your game probably somewhere else, unless it's counter programming.
I remember
the reason I was
late January to early February. Sorry.
I was just going to add that the reason I was chortling is because there was a literal gap between the end of like Zelda taking up all the air in the room and then Diablo 4 and Street Fighter 6. And there was like 4-day window where I got so many press emails that it was horrifying. Anyway, sorry, Gav, you were saying.
I was just going to say, I remember back when late January to early March was a dead space. Like, you would be... Like, we get PR emails all the time, all four of us. And our inbox at times will get so loaded, we've got 300 in a matter of days, right? But that used to be a period of time where you would have to scavenge for news, or you would have to come up with some op-eds or some stuff to kind of, like, fill the void, because there just wasn't anything happening. Now we're at a point in time where, especially with indie gamers, they don't give a shit. They will take that as an opportunity to say, oh, I'm not competing with anybody? Great. February's all mine.
I mean, Konami used to do that in that week when everyone was flying out to E3. They just command the press. So for myself, I've been thinking about this a lot, and obviously I'm predominantly focused on, weird indie and stuff like that. Like, that's kind of where I live. And there are parts where Summer Game Fest does great. So, like, Day of the Devs was brilliant because everyone was eyeballs on for Summer Games Fest, and afterward was Devolver, which is like a spectacle show. So Day of the Devs sat in that little block where everyone was going and getting a snack and making some cup of tea and stuff, and so they used that to take a breath and a beat, show off some small 1- and 2-person team games, and people were genuinely digging that. But that was the only point at which I felt that Summer Games Fest as an overarching entity, not just the first stream, but the whole thing of it, was really well planned. Like, Wholesome Games Direct was super early in the morning with nothing beforehand, or was like, midday for more sensible regions, then leading straight into OTK, and that was it on that day. And I feel like Wholesome Direct kind of got bodied on being on like a kind of because they went up against the Future Game Show that was right after, which no one really understood that one. I know it's been around for a while, but the Future Game Show being, of course, like it's not Giant Bomb, Games Ray.
Yeah. I mean, the weird part is it's the same. At least when it first started. Wait, was Future still on PC Gamer?
No, so this was what was, and here's the confusing
because
part. The Future
no,
Game
no,
Show.
this is what I mean, is that it's confusing because like even back when, because Future, so Games Radar and those publications are owned by the same overarching company as PC Gamer, which is Future, and it's like it doesn't really make sense for them to have two different shows because they're basically serving the same purpose, but for whatever reason they do.
There's two different sponsors at this point. Intel is one, and I forget who's the big sponsor for Future Game Show now.
But it's just odd because Future owns all of it.
Yeah, the Xbox and Starfield Direct was a very confusing prospect externally. I'm not necessarily against it. You know, Xbox did a pre-recorded with banging trailers, but then Starfield was separate, but it's also them, but it's one of those things of like the quality control in terms of these showcases was so all over the place.
Well, I think... Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to add that user interest completely dropped off after day one, and was maybe regained by some of the bigger announcements, but no one was paying attention to the Summer Games stream. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah. Okay, so here's where I'm going to draw some ire, because you have to kind of like view this as beyond what Summer Games Fest is. SGF has its own thing going on,
yes.
Right? They have their own event, they have their own streams that they are clearly doing stuff with. Like they partnered with Day of the Devs to have that run immediately after. Everybody else, while in that week, look like they're a part of SGF, they're not. They're co-opting off of it because they know that that's the week that they can get the most attention. Everything started with the Gorilla showcase, right? And that was 2 hours of game introductions. Then you move forward to the next day, and you have like SGF, Day of the Devs. We almost had the mix. You move on to the next. You have the Future Game Show. You have the PC Gaming Show. All of these shows, which I might add, I covered half of these. I can't tell you what's in like half of these shows. Like half the games are now a fucking blur. And that's one of the biggest issues I take umbrage with, is the idea of you're just slamming as much stuff into a 2 hour period to make money, which by the way, I don't think a lot of people clearly understand. Like people are getting charged out the nose for 30 seconds to a minute of promo time on these showcases.
Yeah.
These companies are making out big, having these presentations that half of them, your game is getting lost in the shuffle. It's completely forgettable. If you were to sit me down and like put a gun to my head and ask me, tell me everything that you saw in the PC Gaming Show, I'd be dead in 2 minutes.
Yep.
Like I can't name half of what's there. Like
Right.
So at that point it's like, is it really SGF that's doing a disservice? Is it really that organization that's bringing all this down? Or is it the idea that everybody has just accepted that the only way they're going to get attention is if they promote it around that one event, and then that entire week just becomes a clusterfuck?
Now, it is worth noting that actually a lot of these events are partnered with Summer Game Fest. They're not just hangers-on. The full list of partnered events on Summer Game Fest site include most of what happened over the course of the week. So it's
they're so they're not run by
Tribeca.
Yeah. They're not run by
the
Jeff, but they are
Well,
part
this is
OTK,
why-
Future,
This
Xbox,
is why I wanted to bring all
that.
three of you together, because like the perception as it is shown externally is that these are all one big block.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like Gav, what
But they're
you're
being
seeing,
controlled by different companies.
yeah, is the
Yeah.
Summer Games Fest is putting these all forward together. I mean, this is the point where the comms get a little bit wibbly wobbly. So there's certain stuff that's not listed as Summer Games Fest events that are listed on the Summer Games Fest Steam page and things like that. So you can really feel.
But I mean,
Sorry.
It's that farmer's market mentality of like, hey, the farmer's market is in this local park. And then if you go just 20 feet outside the market, there's an entirely different market of people who didn't want to pay to be in the market, but they're technically still a part of it. Are you going to hold the market responsible for like flooding the park with triple the amount of people? Or are you going to look at it as everybody wanted to take advantage of the fact that this was a hot spot for a day?
I think it is fair to take umbrage with the people that run the market.
Yeah.
So where like if those people aren't in, is it because they're charging too much? If people are perceived as being in the market but aren't, like somebody's fucking up.
But I mean, again, it also just goes back to that central issue of, is this even a real hotspot? Like, again, it used to be the time when everybody paid attention. But now there's so much happening all the time that people are always at least a little bit aware. And again, most of the major companies can get this attention whenever they want to by virtue of their things being so big. And so, like, I think that, Will, you made this point, and also some people in chat did. In terms of actual utility, the only people and companies any of this makes sense for are the smaller ones. Our showcases like Day of the Devs, following immediately in the wake of bigger showcases, because you get some runoff into that, and people like saying, oh, these games are cool too. And not only that, if you watch something like Summer Games Fest, the main showcase, and feel some AAA fatigue after that, then you have Day of the Devs, and it feels like kind of an antidote. But at the same time, you can't repeat that trick for a whole week. You can do it between like 2 showcases, like literally, a total of maybe 3 or 4 hours. But I mean, after that, people get tired. People are like, okay, I've seen enough. A normal person is going to be like, I'm done with this after like one day.
Yeah, because they're like an hour long, and the games start to run together. I will say Day of the Devs feels probably one of the better paced, in that they'll spend like, a good 2 minutes on a game maybe before moving on. Like you get the developer saying, hi, I'm a person behind this game, and then they show a trailer of the game. So like there's explain what the game is, here's the game, and we're gone.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And to someone else brought this up, like the pacing for these is important. And some of them I feel sometimes get that very wrong in terms of as just a viewer. Like the PC game show, like I feel the pacing is off. Like sometimes they're just like, we're gonna spend like 5 minutes on this game or whatever. And it's just not great. It's just not a great experience. And it does start to blow together. Like wholesome games, I like the idea. But the problem is that a lot of the games occupy the same conceptual space. So it blurs together even faster for me.
Oh yeah. Because if you have 4 games that take, say, Stardew Valley's aesthetic, and they're probably all taking it in interesting different directions, but when you're just seeing trailer after trailer, it is going to start to merge and blur. But I think the other thing that I wanted to add is the potential that we're having of false positives throughout Games Fest, in that the Games Fest stream might have like 100,000 views on Twitch, like something redonkulous. And that's, streams, restreams, the whole shebang. But how much of that is actually conversion, I don't mean this to sound mean-spirited, but I know I wasn't the only person who went into the OG Summer Games Fest with a, let's snark along at it, let's see what nonsense is happening. And that means that the focus from viewers isn't, I'm going to look at a bunch of games to wishlist, it's, what's Keeley done this time?
I mean, also, even beyond that, how much is that crowd a vocal minority? The one that's snarking along or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, we don't really know. We don't really have the numbers of how people are using this from a utility perspective. But again, to argue against some of my own points from earlier, companies still are doing it. And so, at least in some of their minds, it provides enough utility and enough visibility to games for users that it's worth doing. Yeah. But yeah, because I think the sort of snarking along thing is kind of a press tradition. And also a tradition, at least to a degree, for some people in chat. But all of these are in the minority of the sheer number of people watching. Just, you need only look at a Twitch stream viewer count to know that the chat is not the majority of the people watching.
Yeah. So I think it's going to be interesting to see how that pans out. And as I said, I'm hoping to get a squad of game developers together and see like how it affected wish lists and interest and things like that.
Yeah, I would like to hear about like what their conversion rates are looking at, especially those who were in, say, what I'll call a main showcase, like an Xbox. Like if your indie game showed up as Xbox and at like a future or PC games, like what's the difference in conversion during those?
Yeah, man, this sounds like kind of a like a data set or like a quote unquote article that like a journalist could put together, maybe.
Yo, if you
knew any,
if you want to use any of this banter for your stuff, you have my permission.
I am a guy who writes about Final Fantasy 14 now. You, sir, are Nathan Grayson.
Yeah, but I don't have a job.
Fresh off of launcher. You can sell that to like the New York Times or something like that.
I mean, real talk. I'm taking a break right now. I'm working on my book, and also like don't need to dive back in just yet. And I've been doing this for a lot of years now, so I'm taking a breather.
that is a part of that. Like I said, when my car thing came up, I was like, I'll cancel all my plans. I canceled my hotel, and then I watched all the stuff, and then I was just like there was some FOMO from not being at Summer Games Fest for me. But then in my head, I was like, but also I didn't have to cover any of this. Like there was, like, I watched the stuff because I care, but some of the showcases I didn't watch live. I just watched them later afterwards when I felt like it. And I scrubbed through them like the PC gaming show. Like the folks talking didn't really even like annoy me that much because I wasn't watching it live. I watched it on my TV on YouTube, and every time those little interstitial bits happened, I just fast forwarded through them.
Yeah,
So
I think a lot of the FOMO, and by the way, this is particularly for us. We are a small group of people in the larger scheme of people living on this planet. We all get these games eventually. Like, we get to play them, right? Or we get demos for them. It's not so much not attending the event that kicks in. I think it's more the idea of having a hands-on, face-to-face with the people who made it, or at least seeing the people that we're familiar with and become friends with, or at least know in our industry. Like, I think that's where more of the FOMO comes from. Because if I didn't attend Summer Games Fest, like, I'm grateful to have been able to go and try all that stuff out in advance. But if I didn't go, it's not like I would be heartbroken or my job would be screwed or anything like that. Like, I'd just be more like, man, I didn't get to see X this year. That sucks.
The thing that
I'd still be writing about Sonic, the Hedgehog and the new games that they got coming.
Oh god, yeah.
I'd still be playing Final Fantasy 16 in a few weeks. I'd still be like whatever I can't remember the new Mickey game, the Island one, which is really fun to play. Like, I'd still be playing that in a month here. Like, I think that's what it comes down to, at least as far as those of us who work it as part of our jobs or like are tied to the industry.
Yeah, I didn't.
I can't speak to regular fandom because I haven't been a regular fan since 2005.
You can't go back.
No.
The only thing that I missed from all of this was it would have been lovely to see all of you at like the Fig, like the old Fig, and have a bevy and hear about your, the things you'd seen in your, like. But the actual event, the actual, the circus of it, I did not miss.
Which, by the way, that was a piece of it that I brought up earlier. Every night, somebody would be like, "Hey, you want to go hang out at the JW?" I'm like, "Why? It's a mile in that direction. Why are we going to the hotel bar that's not even near an event at the moment?" And then you'd like, "Okay, I'll begrudgingly go with 3 other people." You show up, and the place was full.
And the answer is the same point that Nathan has been bringing up. We go there because we've always gone there. And that's it. Regardless of if that is the best venue for what we wanted, which was to see other people.
Mm-hmm.
Time becomes a loop.
Yeah, I mean, it's where everyone goes for the Game Awards too. It's all that same hotel bar.
Well, to be fair, it's closer to the Game Awards than it is to
significantly
the.
so.
Yeah.
And now
It's actually very walkable for the Game Awards.
we've seen Neo jump off the rooftop bar now, so that's solidified. To our lovely viewership, if you have any fast shot questions you'd like for our lovely guests, now's the time to throw it in.
I saw one in your chat. Someone asked, like, what at the Game Awards did not get the crowd reaction that we expected.
Indeed.
I would say, this is not me making fun of Marvel in any way, shape, or form, but Spider-Man 2 did not get any real reaction. I don't know what you heard on stream, but it was almost like crickets when they released the date.
And Keeley, who was clearly ad-libbing, but putting the guy on the spot about, is it actually going to release? We were all like, what are you talking? Keeley, you can't...
And Marvel Snap. Like, I love that dude. I forget his name off the top of my head.
He's great.
Enthusiastic. He's a really awesome dude to like have a conversation with about anything that doesn't involve gaming. But when he came out and he was trying to get the crowd hyped, that crowd was just not into it.
Yeah, it wasn't the right energy level. No, it's really funny because Jeff's energy level for hosting is like a different one too. And so you had this like, he just came in a little too big for the room.
Yeah,
and, like,
this is no insult to Jeff, but I've always viewed Jeff at these shows more as a game show host.
Yeah.
Like, he knows exactly the beats to hit and knows when to hit them. And when he comes back, he's already ready to go on cue. He knows exactly what he's going to say, whether it's like something he's thought up or he's reading in the prompter.
Yeah,
and he's
talking about DoorDash.
Yeah.
That will still be one of the highlights.
90% of the time, he's great when it comes to like making that show move along and having conversations. And yeah. I don't know what else to say on that.
I mean, a lot of that stuff doesn't hit. One, because we've already seen it, but two, like the Fortnite thing. Like, the people who care about Fortnite aren't necessarily going to be the audience for that show. Like the people who care about Fortnite absolutely love it. Like, I'm sure if I looked up that Fortnite Wilds trailer, probably has 1 million views or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
Because there are people that care. But that's also not like a Summer Games Fest keynote or a Game Awards keynote. Like, that's for new shit. Like, show me some new shit. That's what I'm there for.
It's also another argument against lumping all of this together. And it's just like, when you do that, you invariably fail some of the games involved, or like the audience that actually cares about this isn't present.
The point I wanted to make was that whoever did the scheduling for just the core Summer Games stream, their layout was very, very clever, because the Fortnite trailer, if it had been the opening trailer, as with Mortal Kombat 1, probably would have gone down a stinker. But it followed the blandest AAA game that I've seen out through, I think I call it Golden Gilded boredom. And the Fortnite trailer came immediately after this. So it was the guy who came out and is like, the guy's a mage and it's special forces. The game that sounded like the worst
Rules of Avium. Magic, Call of Duty.
The game was bland. The guy was having a very, very hard time following Nick Cage and stuff like that. And then after looking through a game that made giant robots look dull, then we had Optimus Prime on a fucking Velociraptor. And you know what? That is how you block it out. Because I wasn't bored.
But they were smart in the idea, and maybe this is a credit to Ubisoft giving them 2 games that they knew that they could bookend with, because we got Prince of Persia at the start of the show, which I got to play and is pretty fucking awesome. I'll read my website for more. And Star Wars Outlaws, which was a shock to a lot of people. Or wait. Sorry, it was there. But yeah, the idea of just like, oh, holy shit, like, these 2 games from this same company kind of at the start of the show and near the end of the show, just kind of like blowing people away. Yeah. I thought that was brilliant booking.
Okay, so I think we've gone through all of the questions and otherwise. Was there any other final points you wanted to make before we bring our banter to a close?
E3 is dead. Do we need E3 too? Question mark.
I wish we'd had the E3 versus Keighley that was initially planned. At least that feels like it
I
would
mean,
have been
E3. E3 versus E3.
I mean,
Fight of the Century.
Yeah.
it would have been interesting, but like, strictly speaking, if somebody had to pay out of pocket to go to events, I'm not doing 2 weeks in LA. Like, if I have to choose between the two of them, I will go to Summer Games Fest over
No.
E3. Just, yeah.
What we need is E3 versus Key 3 versus a secret third thing. 3 weeks.
Yeah.
E3 weeks.
No
Devolver
survivors.
Digital in the parking lot across the street.
Let's go.
D3. I would say next year, if they're not already talking about it, it's going to happen. Playdays is probably going to be a 3-day event. And if they have not outgrown that space, they are about to, because practically everything in the area they took over was filled. Maybe 1 or 2 spots could be converted. Maybe they could pack a few extra stations in there. But I cannot see that thing existing where it is right now beyond
Maybe they could
2024.
Maybe they could go for a central location, like a convention center.
Maybe if they were set
that
up
would
in
be
a very
built-
specific hallway near a theater and a couple of hotels, somewhere, I don't know, near or in downtown Los Angeles, so like people are near where they used to be. I don't know, just a thought.
Just a thought.
Earlier I was saying that like after a couple years, the Jeff's version of E3, Key 3, will also die out because it doesn't serve a purpose. But the way that y'all are putting this legitimately has me wondering if our industry's fate is not to just repeatedly kind of halfway reverse engineer E3 over and over and over again, like long after it's outlived its usefulness,
The idea-
potentially for decades.
In the
Where,
same way
every
that
time it's
humanity
a little
must
different.
have heroes, there must always be an E3. And
I
unfortunately,
will-
as a Twitch streamer, I must now make an arse of myself whilst talking to you. So please continue. I just have to make a tit of myself.
I will fully agree with you if and when Playdays moves to Las Vegas for a year. When that happens, he got a proper tip.
Okay, there we go.
When the day comes that somebody's like, it's too expensive to be in LA, okay, we'll move it for a year. Where do you want to move it? Well, we have Atlanta or we have Las Vegas. That's when it'll be fully reversed engineered.
I think Vegas will probably stay for DICE because the money people don't want to have to mix with the punters. Honestly, I
Fair
can see
enough.
that being the only reason it won't be in Vegas.
Yeah, I don't actually know when I would, where would I put it and when would I have it? I don't know. Again, there's just so many shows. Like,
There's a part of me that wants to do like what Reboot has been doing, which is like, fuck it, if we all have to meet up as an industry, let's go somewhere like a castle city in Croatia or like Banff in Canada in a fucking chateau covered in snow. Like, fuck it, we've all got to be in one place together and we've got to spend LA or San Francisco prices. Let's go somewhere gorgeous.
Yeah,
But that's just
I
me.
think the brilliant but also unfortunate thing is that PAX got it right.
Yeah.
Like, you have an event in September on Labor Day weekend, a good 2 months before like real holiday shopping happens. You're highlighting a ton of games that people have never seen before because the majority of the floor is indie and tabletop. What AAA is on the floor, they're basically showing you the final product before it goes off to being like sold, or they're barely announcing it, like Kerbal Space Program 2, where they showed up and like had like a presentation but nothing to play. And now with the new Nintendo thing that they're going to be doing, which is going to be awkward unto itself, I'm curious how that's going to work out when we go there.
Yup.
But they've basically set up this convention that's in the perfect area at the perfect time. Trying to compete with that would be the worst mistake they could make with, or anybody could make with them.
Yeah.
I mean, also, to your point, the most emblematic way to look at this is that very literally E3 is now owned by ReedPop, the company that does PAX.
Yup.
Like, if you want
Yeah.
to talk about PAX being right, having completely nailed it, they bought E3. Like, maybe that wasn't a good decision, but they gained the resources and the means by which to do it because they were so right about everything else.
Yeah.
Okay, so friends, thank you so much for joining me for an afternoon of a lot more banter than I was expecting. So thank you all for your time. Thank you all for your inputs. So, Nathan, when can people start finding out about your book and pre-wishlisting it?
Let's see.
I don't know
At the
how
moment,
books are
I'm working
sold,
on kind of.
Sorry.
At the moment, I'm working on kind of like final edits and stuff. It'll come out sometime next year. We don't have a final date nailed down yet, but I would guess probably middle-ish of the year. I don't know when you'll be able to pre-order it yet because this is my first book, and I don't know when in the kind of cycle that happens. But I would imagine relatively soon-ish. If nothing else, if you follow me on Twitter, I will be advertising it all of the time. Also, there will be excerpts of it posted on various websites and publications and things like that. So you'll be able to read it and see what you think, and then spend some money.
Boosh. So, friends, I have put Nathan's Twitter in chat. Mike, it's been lovely to both meet you and immediately leap into industry banter. Where should people find and follow you?
You can follow me on Twitter at AutomaticZen, ZEN, and the same on that new Twitter, Blue Sky.
Oh, yes.
Which is also AutomaticZen or MH Williams, one of the two, whatever.
Okay.
And I would say follow me on Fanbyte, but I'm actually leaving Fanbyte at the end of the week, so.
Oh, really? I didn't know
Oh,
that.
yes.
Breaking news.
Do you have something else lined up?
Yes, I do have
Heck yeah, we'd
something
love to
else
hear it.
already lined up.
Heck yeah.
So I will be
Well, then,
I will be leaving the games journalism. I always call it the musical chairs. I will be leaving a chair open for somebody. So.
Alrighty. Well, you know, as soon as you're done, you can. As soon as we're off here, you can DM me with where you're going.
Yeah.
I won't tell anyone.
I would love to know.
And last but by no means least, Gav, where should I send people to follow your good self?
You can read my articles at bleedingcool.com. I'm the games editor there, so practically half the stuff that you read there is written by me as I ceaselessly work away. You can read all my social media stuff at the Gavin Sheehan across the board. I'm twice the rest of the Gavins are. Yeah, that's basically me. I just randomly tweet out stuff that I feel like and show off weird stuff that gets sent to me. Like yesterday, I got sent a Yeti cooler from Ghostbusters Spirits Unleashed.
Okay.
It's tan like the Ghostbusters uniforms with the logo right on top. I get weird I mean, it's really awesome.
It's actually one of the few things that keeps me logging back into Instagram is the wild little like press MacGuffins that you get sent.
Right?
Oh yeah, Nathan, we didn't even talk about what your book's about. It's about bloody Twitch. Yeah. I'm sorry, friend.
Oh no, it's all good. The stream was about other things. It does not matter that much. No, but yeah, my book is about Twitch. It's about the world of Twitch and live streaming as viewed through the lens of 9 different creators. Some of whom are very prominent, others of whom are less so. And yeah, it's been a whole lot of work. I went to a lot of people's like houses and talked to them on their couches and shit for like 8 hours at a time, and then interviewed people in their communities and their moderators, and families, and friends, and industry sources, and all that shit. It's definitely the biggest undertaking of my entire career. And then I turned it into 83,000 words, which is so many words.
That's a
Dear
lot
God.
of words.
Finishing the first draft nearly killed me. I was working like 12 to 14 hour days for like 3 to 4 weeks straight, and including weekends. It was brutal.
That sounds like an awesome book I want to read.
As we
I think it'll be good.
Well, I don't want to hear about any of them stinky Twitch streamers. Like, who do that for a living, eh?
Indeed.
No, but seriously, all of you, thank you. And if I get the opportunity, like once we've gotten some feedback from devs in like a few weeks and stuff like that, I'd love to have you all back on at some point once we have the full data set. because I don't know. I'm really hoping that all of this is going to be helpful to devs, indie devs, and like even like PRs and journos, you know, moving forward. I wish we weren't living in interesting times, but we are. And yeah, I genuinely believe that the conversation we've had here is going to help people in the future. So seriously, thank you all so much.
Thanks.
Right, because I'm working on duct tape and scissors, I can't actually throw you out this call. So if you want to stick around while I do credits and thank yous, you're very welcome.
No, I can show myself out.
But yeah, thank you all.
Thanks for having us, dude. Have a good day.
And you. Right, friends. Hang on. No, hang on. Why are you here? There we go. Right, I'm back the right side round. So, friends, Longshipians, miscreants. I'm going to roll credits in just a second, but like, thank you all so much for bearing with. I know this was slightly different than our usual thing, and the stream was a little bit shorter, but I just thought this was really important. Like, I do think this is something we're going to be referencing a lot, and how things shape out in the coming years is going to be really interesting. So I hope some of it was legitimately useful to you. Again, thank you to Mike, Nathan, and Gavin for sharing stories, knowledge, and expertise. I have a feeling that if I left all of those individuals to just share stories, they would be here for the next 20 years. And I don't want to keep them from their friends, families, and loved ones. Right! Despite this being a very short stream, and the ilk, I do still have to say my thank yous. Because even when nothing's going down, you'll tend to bring the thunder. Tend to bring the thunder. Tend to bring the Let's try that again. Look, I know it's broken and I know it's janky, but I'm not getting through a day without saying thank you. Alright? No, seriously, friends, like, thank you all so heckin' much. To
Captain on the bridge.
Oh!
I was waiting for the chat to finish, so there, D.
Okay, so to Bacon Avenger, Orion Pirate, Wolfcrad, Fearless Son. That's not everybody! Ah, bleeding Nora. So on top of everything else, the credits are broken. Alright, look. So Bacon, 35 months at a tier 3 isn't even a full sliver of how much that you put into keeping this going. Play Yaya Dingo. All of you, fucking thank you. It's wonderful that we get to have such industry legends just come and hang out on a Tuesday. And we'll go back here. And yeah. Because I still haven't worked out how to say a proper thank you, especially on days like today. So, all of you, thank you. Alright. Right. So we're back tomorrow. Tomorrow will be a continuation of The Saint from Rain World. And if you want to know what else is going on the week, check on Discord. We have ourselves a full-on fancy schedule. I can't lead a raid, so you will all have to go and find someone and share the love on this twitch.television. And yeah, if you have any thoughts or feels on some of Games Week that you feel that we didn't get the chance to cover, I mean, shite, that's why we got a Discord to talk about it. Okay, have yourselves a lovely rest of your evening, friends. Take care, and to be continued.